Chapter 355. The tribe outside was in a mess. The high priest was dead. The treasures were gone. The war soul was also taken away. 40 to 50 war kings had also fallen. The overall strength of the tribe could be said to have plummeted. They searched everywhere for Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. If they didn't take revenge, they wouldn't be human. But after searching the tribe, they couldn't find any trace of the man and the wolf. Where the hell did they go? Get out here and die, some people roared. He Yuan didn't look for them. He stood at the place where Qin Feiyang disappeared, his eyes flickering. Every time they disappeared, they would appear in the same place. This was enough to show that the man and the wolf definitely didn't leave. As long as he waited here, he should be able to find them. With that thought in mind, a strong cold light burst out from his old eyes. But after a long time, he didn't see Qin Feiyang and Wolf King appear. He began to wonder if his judgment was wrong. Had the man and the wolf left long ago? His mind was in a mess. He didn't know if he should continue to wait or go somewhere else to look. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyang pricked up his ears and listened carefully to the movements outside. Wolf King asked, "How is it? Is it safe outside?" "I didn't hear anything, but I'm afraid that He Yuan will silently wait outside. After all, we've been in and out several times. Anyone with a bit of brains will be able to find some clues," Qin Feiyang said. Wolf King said, "Don't we have a teleportation gate? Can't we just teleport out?" Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be stunned. He had never tried to teleport out of the castle. However, the castle was an independent space divine object. Could it be directly teleported out? Probably not. He took out a teleportation gate and tried it. The result was that it really couldn't be teleported. Wolf King was a little disappointed, but Qin Feiyang didn't. Everything was within his expectations. Right. As if he suddenly thought of something, he turned his head to look at the Wolf King and asked, "That battle soul of yours, can it be taken away from everyone?" "Of course." Wolf King nodded and said, "But it also depends on the opponent's cultivation." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Wolf King said, "As long as they are in the same realm, I can strip them of their battle souls." Qin Feiyang was shocked and asked, "If you were a 1-star battle king now, would you still be able to seize the battle soul of a 9-star battle king?" "That's right." Wolf King nodded and added, "However, if the opponent's cultivation has surpassed the battle king realm and reached the battle emperor realm, then it won't work." "Suck!" Qin Feiyang gasped. Wasn't this too heaven-defying? If Wolf King broke through to the 1-star combat emperor, wouldn't he be able to take away the fighting soul of a 9-star combat emperor? With such a terrifying ability, who would dare to go against it in the future? Wolf King smiled proudly and asked, "What are the innate abilities of your 3 war souls?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Don't you always like to keep people in suspense? I will also keep it a secret this time. TCH, it's just 3 broken war souls. What's the big deal?" Wolf King's eyes were filled with disdain. "Yes, I do have broken war souls, but I have a lot of them. 3 of them. Your war soul is awesome, but unfortunately there is only 1. This proves that there is still a gap between you and me." Qin Feiyang joked. "I'll bite you to death." Wolf King bared his teeth and pounced towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang sent it flying with a slap. He said unhappily, "All right, stop messing around. Let me think about how to get rid of He Yuan." Although he was not afraid of He Yuan was a 1-star combat emperor and was not easy to deal with. "Got it." Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He took out an illusory form pill and threw it into his mouth, turning into a skinny old man with white hair. Wolf King was still brooding over the fact that Qin Feiyang had sent it flying, but when he saw Qin Feiyang's change, he couldn't help but be surprised. Because Qin Feiyang's current appearance was that of the He tribe's high priest. He wanted to use this identity to confuse He Yuan? Was that possible? He Yuan already knew that the high priest was dead. Now that he had turned into the high priest, if he went out and was seen by He Yuan, he would definitely be suspicious. It wouldn't work. Qin Feiyang laughed. I'm not trying to confuse him. I'm just trying to distract him. As long as he's distracted, we'll have a chance to launch a sneak attack. At the same time, he took out Chang Shui and threw it to Wolf King, saying seriously, I'll leave the mission of the sneak attack to you. You must kill him in one hit. This, Wolf King hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, big brother, we'll fight it out with him. Qin Feiyang took out another rib and lowered his head to look at it, his eyes shining. Although this thing couldn't compare to Chang Shui, it was undeniable that it was also a treasure. It was perfect to use it as a bludgeon. Putting the rib into the leader's body, he turned to the Wolf King and asked, Are you ready? Attack at any time. Wolf King's eyes flickered with a cold light. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and appeared outside in an instant. He Yuan was about to lose his patience and was about to go somewhere else. But suddenly, he sensed an aura appear. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Killing intent crawled up from his eyes, and without hesitation, he turned around and punched out. However, just as he turned around, he immediately braked and stopped, his old face instantly filled with bewilderment. High Priest? Wasn't he dead? Driven by instinct, He Yuan turned his head to look at the wooden building behind him that had already turned into ruins. He had clearly seen with his own eyes that the high priest had died in that secret room. So why did he suddenly appear again? Not good. It must be Qin Feiyang, who had disguised himself as the high priest, trying to pass himself off as a fake. He Yuan was not stupid and immediately thought of this. But just as he thought of this, Qin Feiyang quickly took out the rib, grabbing one end with both hands. He used it as a stick and smashed it towards He Yuan's head. At the same time, with a thought, Wolf King also appeared out of thin air. Its 2 rows of steel teeth were biting Chang Shui's hilt, and the tip of the blade was pointed forward. At this moment, Wolf King was like the shaft of an arrow, and Chang Shui was like the tip of the arrow. The wolf and the dagger fused together and transformed into a bone-piercing arrow. As soon as it came out, it shot towards He Yuan's lower abdomen. In the blink of an eye, He Yuan had just turned around when the hard rib smashed into his head. Bang! Ah! At this moment, He Yuan saw stars and held in pain. Damn it! It's really you! Go to hell! He roared and raised his hand to slap Qin Feiyang's head. If he was hit, Qin Feiyang's head would definitely explode on the spot. But at this moment, Wolf King and Chang Shui arrived. Chang Shui was invincible and easily broke through He Yuan's lower abdomen, pierced through his qi, and swept out from behind. Immediately, a palm-sized bloody hole appeared on He Yuan's lower abdomen, penetrating from front to back. A glaring stream of blood spurted out from the hole. A heart-wrenching pain suddenly swept over. What's going on? He Yuan lowered his head to look. When he saw the bloody hole, his old eyes were filled with deep disbelief. 2 mere war kings actually had the ability to break through his lower abdomen, and qi? Was he dreaming? The next moment, he couldn't help but scream. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and Wolf King also retreated. While He Yuan screamed, he turned to look at Wolf King. Seeing the dagger in Wolf King's mouth, his face immediately became twisted and ferocious. Without a doubt, it was that dagger that broke through his lower abdomen and qi, but this was too unbelievable. What level of dagger was that? How could it be so terrifying? I'm going to kill you, He Yuan roared hysterically and rushed towards Wolf King. I'll go. Your qi is crippled, and you still have the strength to run. However, you're a cripple now. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Wolf King rushed towards He Yuan with disdain in his eyes. However, He Yuan didn't manage to run 2 steps before he fell to the ground with a bang. He was no longer able to get up. His consciousness was also being rapidly devoured by the darkness. Ugh! Wolf King was stunned for a moment, then ran in front of He Yuan's head and laughed. Before you die, try my holy water first. At that moment, a stream of urine sprayed out, and all of it splashed on He Yuan's face. He Yuan gritted his teeth and said sternly, Bastard, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Hey, Wolf King laughed. Wait until you become a ghost. My holy water is extremely rare. Have a good taste. Uft. He Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood. Bastard, can you be any more shameless? At this time, Qin Feiyang also came in front of He Yuan and said indifferently, Tell me the coordinates of the Purple Sun tribe. Maybe I can save your life. Qi Si was crippled. As long as his heart and head were fine, he would not necessarily die. As long as he took the healing pill in time, there was still a chance to save his life. But he needed a high-level healing pill. Ordinary healing pill did not have this ability. However, even if he could save his life, he would be a cripple for the rest of his life and would not be able to continue cultivating, because there was no way to repair a broken Qi Si. Can you save your life? He Yuan was stunned and said with a grim smile, If you can't cultivate, living will only be more painful. I won't tell you. You can take your time to find it. Is that so? Qin Feiyang took out a top-grade healing pill with 2 elixir veins and stuffed it into He Yuan's mouth. The bloody hole in his lower abdomen immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qin Feiyang sneered, Now it's not that easy for you to die, even if you want to. If you are willing to tell me, I will give you a quick death. What kind of healing pill is this? The effect is actually so strong. He Yuan's face was full of disbelief. Qin Feiyang lost his patience and shouted, Are you going to tell me or not? He Yuan laughed sinisterly. I won't tell you even if you kill me. If you have any means, just come at me. Qin Feiyang's face turned cold, got up and grabbed Chang Shui and said to Wolf King, Torture him until he tells you. It's a piece of cake. The Wolf King laughed mischievously and immediately attacked, using everything he had. Immediately, He Yuan's blood-curdling screams resounded in this place. Let go of the leader. At this time, a large group of people rushed over aggressively. They were all War King. Whoever dares to move, I'll kill them. Qin Feiyang turned his head and swept his gaze over them. That bone-chilling gaze caused their bodies and minds to tremble. Chapter 356. Their hearts were filled with fear, but more than that, they were in disbelief. They were already very shocked when they killed the high priest, but they never thought that even their leader would fall at their hands. Their leader was a genuine war emperor. The methods of this man and wolf were too heaven-defying. Wang. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's image crystal moved. It was a message from Fatso. He asked Qin Feiyang for the coordinates. When Qin Feiyang told Fatso the coordinates, in less than 3 breaths, Fatso and the pangolin appeared beside him out of thin air. Not bad. Even this old thing was crippled by you. Amazing. Fatty and the pangolin couldn't help but laughed strangely when they saw He Yuan lying on the ground being tortured by the Wolf King. Qin Feiyang asked, How's the situation at the Lu tribe? Fatso sneered, Even the War King has been killed by us. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, Let's go and help. That's what I was thinking. The fatty grinned evilly as he rubbed his fists and walked towards He Yuan. The pangolin rolled its eyes and jumped onto Qin Feiyang's shoulder, saying, There's no good bird around you. You're not a good bird either. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. The pangolin said angrily, Don't talk nonsense. This king is a gentleman. These 2 idiots can't be compared to this king. Qin Feiyang's face twitched as he cursed. Shameless. Wolf King and Fatso were already narcissistic enough, but this guy was even more narcissistic than them. With Fatso's addition, He Yuan's screams became even more miserable. He even wanted to bite his tongue and commit suicide, but Wolf King didn't give him the chance at all. It's not that easy to die. Once, there were 2 idiots like you who came to provoke us recklessly. In the end, you were tortured by me for 2 to 3 days. That feeling was really satisfying. Wolf King chuckled. The 2 people it was talking about were Wang Fei and Zheng Chuan, who were plotting against Lu Hong. 2 or 3 days. The moment He Yuan heard, he could not help feeling chills all over his body. He hurriedly said, "You all quickly stop. I'll tell everything." "Then say it," Fatso shouted. He Yuan said, "Ziyang tribe is too far away from here. I don't know the coordinates." Wolf King said angrily, "If you don't know, then why are you still pretending?" He Yuan hurriedly said, "Although I don't know, I know of a place where someone definitely knows the coordinates of Ziyang tribe." "Stop," Qin Feiyang said. Wolf King's paw landed on He Yuan's crotch. Roar! He Yuan immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered. Fatso also kicked him a few times, and then retreated to the side with Wolf King. Qin Feiyang said, "Hurry up and tell me, where is it?" He Yuan endured the pain and said, "White Fox City." Qin Feiyang said, "Be more specific." He Yuan said, "White Fox City is the only city within 1,000 miles, and the city lord is a 2-star war emperor." Next, he told Qin Feiyang about the situation and the coordinates of White Fox City. After listening, Qin Feiyang looked at Fatso and said, "Give him a quick death." Fatso took a step forward and ended He Yuan's life. Leader, the surrounding He tribe members all cried out in grief. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't want to follow in the footsteps of the Lu tribe, then behave yourself. Qin Feiyang opened a teleportation gate and brought Fatso, Wolf King, and the pangolin beast in, leaving behind a bone-chilling sentence. White Fox City. This was an ancient city with a very long history, but it wasn't big, about the same size as the Black Bear City. With Qin Feiyang's cultivation, it would only take a few hundred breaths of time to cross White Fox City. There was a dense forest outside the city. The dense forest was covered in snow, and a few figures appeared out of thin air beside a big tree. It was Qin Feiyang and his group. There were a few fierce beasts hunting nearby. When they saw them, they pounced forward. Scram! Wolf King roared, and a terrifying might pressed down. The ferocious beasts immediately fled. Qin Feiyang looked around, then looked at Fatso and said, "There's nothing much to do now. You go to the castle first and sort out these Qinkuan bag." He took out the dozen or so Qinkuan bag. Fatso grabbed it in his hand, his eyes shining with green light. Although the He tribe only had one war emperor, it was still the He tribe's many years of savings, so there must be a lot of valuable treasures. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Fatso into the castle. The pangolin looked at Wolf King sneakily and said, "Let me in too." "Don't even think about it. Grow up immediately and take me and little Qin Zi into the city." Wolf King shouted, "What? I'm a beast king, and you want me to be your mount?" "I'm telling you, don't go too far," the pangolin said angrily. Wolf King joked, "What, you're not convinced? Come on, let's compete." "Okay, you're awesome." The pangolin glared at him fiercely. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. It changed back to its true form. Its 5 or 6 meters long body exuded an astonishing ferocious aura. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment, then jumped onto the pangolin's back. Wolf King stood on top of the pangolin's head, waved his claws in front of him, and shouted in high spirits, "Let's go! You can be proud of yourself. Sooner or later, I'll teach you a lesson." The pangolin snorted coldly and ran out of the dense forest with heavy steps, making loud, thumping sounds. The ground was shaking, and it left footprints that were 1 foot deep. The snow on the surrounding trees fell in patches. Wherever it passed, the ferocious beasts it encountered fled in panic, like birds startled by the twang of a bow. "What's going on?" Why is there such a big commotion? Is it a beast tide? The people hunting in the forest also turned pale with fright. Wolf King shouted, "Be quiet. Are you afraid that others won't know we're here?" The pangolin said angrily, "Can you not ask for so much?" "How dare you talk back?" Wolf King was furious. He slapped its head with his claws, and the pangolin jumped in pain. The commotion became louder. "It must be a beast tide. Let's go and take a look." One figure after another rushed over from all directions. Sensing those auras, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but frown. Then he jumped down and landed on the ground, saying, "Both of you, go and stay on my shoulder." The pangolin was as if it had been granted amnesty. It instantly turned into the size of a palm and landed on Qin Feiyang's left shoulder. "Bastard, I told you to do it on purpose." Wolf King angrily jumped up and slapped the pangolin flying with a claw. It crashed into a big tree, and its body was about to fall apart. It got up in a sorry state and looked at Wolf King angrily. "If you continue like this king will become angry. If you have the guts, then come." A little follower should have the awareness of a little follower. "If you dare to do this again, I will directly cripple you." Wolf King coldly snorted. "I'll endure it." The pangolin took a deep breath, walked in front of Qin Feiyang, and jumped onto his right shoulder. Qin Feiyang frowned. It seemed that he couldn't let these two little fellows stay together too often. Otherwise, they would fight sooner or later. Whoosh! At this moment, a few middle-aged men took the lead and arrived at this place. They glanced at Qin Feiyang and then looked elsewhere. One of them asked, "Kid, what was that commotion just now?" More and more people came, all of their faces full of surprise. "I don't know either." Qin Feiyang shrugged his shoulders and strode away. "Stop!" A young man around 25 or 26 years old wearing a leopard skin suddenly shouted. "What's the matter?" Qin Feiyang stopped and turned to look at the young man in leopard skin. The young man in leopard skin walked to a footprint left by the pangolin. After carefully observing it for a moment, he gradually frowned. He raised his head to look at the other footprints, and then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "You said you don't know. Then what's going on with these footprints?" "How would I know? Besides, what does it have to do with me?" After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he turned around and continued to walk forward. The young man in leopard skin shouted, "If you don't explain it clearly, you can't leave." Whoosh! Immediately, more than 10 people blocked Qin Feiyang's path. These people were men and women, all of them middle-aged. Their bodies were stained with blood, and the smell of blood was pungent. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, "I'm curious, why are you blocking me?" "Because the commotion just now came from you." Our prey was scared away by the commotion. You happen to be here. Who else should we look for if not you? Tell us, is it related to you? The people around shouted. The young man in leopard skin suddenly noticed the pangolin on Qin Feiyang's shoulder, and his eyes flashed. He looked at Qin Feiyang again and sneered, "Don't ask, everyone. The commotion just now was caused by the small beast on his shoulder." "Hey, why is it so small?" Did they all take the transformation pill? Everyone looked at it, and they were very surprised. The transformation pill was very expensive, and there were not many in White Fox City who could afford it. And this person was a stranger. He should be someone from somewhere else. Wasn't this a good opportunity to blackmail? An old woman in a green robe walked out and said in a hoarse voice, "Although the pangolin is small, the shape of its hooves and footprints are exactly the same. It must be them." Hooves? The pangolin was already full of anger, and when it heard the word, it was furious and shouted, "Old witch, I dare you to say that again!" "Hey, it can speak!" Everyone was stunned. The value of the bottleneck breaking pill was almost on par with the transformation pill. This young man must be a rich man. The old woman in the green robe's eyes flashed coldly. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Boy, what's your name and where are you from?" Before blackmailing, He had to find out the other party's identity. Otherwise, it would be bad luck if he ran into an iron plate. Qin Feiyong frowned. It seemed that today was not going to be kind. He glared at the pangolin and Wolf King fiercely. If it weren't for these two bastards, he wouldn't have encountered such trouble. After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyong said, "I'm from the Purple Sun tribe." "What? The Purple Sun tribe?" The surrounding people were shocked. "Everyone, don't be fooled by him. He's not from the Purple Sun tribe. Because the Purple Sun tribe is too far from here. It's impossible to come here without a few years." The young man in leopard skin sneered with a trace of mockery in his eyes. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the young man in leopard skin and said indifferently, "Don't you know that there's something called the teleportation gate?" What's wrong with this person? He kept getting in the way. Did he have a grudge against him? Chapter 357. The young man in leopard skin said, "Stop quibbling. You're not from the Z Sun tribe at all." Qin Feiyong said, "How can you be so sure?" The young man in leopard skin sneered. "Of course I'm sure. You can fool others, but you can't fool me." Qin Feiyong frowned. That's not right. Why did he feel that this person knew him very well? Could he be from the He tribe or the Lu tribe? The old woman in green robes said, "Since Ding Ming said no, then he's definitely not from the Z Sun tribe." Ding Ming? Qin Feiyong was stunned. It seemed that this person was not from the He tribe or the Lu tribe. "Kid, you actually dare to bluff us. You've got guts. We won't make things difficult for you. 1,000,000 gold coins each. Hand over the gold coins and we'll let you go. But if you don't hand it over, don't even think about walking out of this forest alive." Everyone's eyes were cold. 1,000,000? Qin Feiyong was stunned and glanced at them one by one. There were about 50 people around him. 1,000,000 per person was only 50 million. To him, 50 million was just a drop in the ocean. However, man's greed knows no bounds. If he really gave it to them now, these people would definitely demand an exorbitant price. Putting all this aside, at present, no one could take half a gold coin from him, unless he was willing. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed coldly and said, "White-eyed wolf, pangolin, go test their strength." "I've been waiting for you to say that." The two beasts rushed out from his shoulders at the same time. Boom! Their small bodies expanded in the wind and instantly changed back to their true forms. They were both 5 to 6 meters long and had white fangs that shone with a shocking cold light. So big! Their aura is also very strong. The 50 people were shocked. "What are you afraid of? We have so many people. Do you believe that we can't kill them?" Ding Ming shouted. "That's right. If you want to make a fortune, you have to be willing to risk your life. No one will give it to you. Everyone, come with me." The old woman in green robe roared and her aura exploded. She took the lead and rushed toward the Wolf King and Pangolin. She was a 5-star battle king. The others also unleashed their auras and pounced towards them. For a moment, the place was filled with snowflakes. "Brother Wolf, I'll leave that old witch to you." Seeing this, the pangolin turned around and charged at the others. The green-robed old woman was a 5-star battle king, while it was a 4-star battle king. Although there was only a difference of 1 level between them, it was very likely that the green-robed old woman still had more battle arts. Therefore, it wisely chose to leave this heavyweight opponent to Wolf King to deal with. However, it specifically targeted those who were weaker than it. Useless! Wolf King glared at it in disdain and instantly activated Berserk Rage. The bird that sticks out gets shot. Haven't you heard of that? Apart from the young man in leopard skin, this old witch was the most arrogant one. Wolf King naturally wouldn't show mercy to such a person. It rushed in front of the green-robed old woman and waved its claws. "Ah, Before the green-robed old woman could react, she was sent flying with a shrill scream. What a strong force! It has a battle art. The green-robed old woman's face was full of regret. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have used her brain. She flew more than 30 meters away and smashed into a huge stone door the size of a house. She spat out a mouthful of blood and died on the spot. As for the boulder, it also shattered into pieces. What? A 5-star battle king was killed in an instant. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Everyone looked at the Wolf King, their eyes filled with unresolvable fear. I'll kill it. At this moment, a burly man dressed in tiger skin jumped out and walked towards the Wolf King with a bold and decisive manner. His aura was very strong. He was a 6-star battle king, and also the strongest among these people. Frost Arrow. When he was 5 meters away from Wolf King, the burly man in tiger skin waved his fan-like hand, and the surrounding snow rose into the air. In the blink of an eye, numerous ice arrows were formed in front of him. It was densely packed in a large area. They flickered with an astonishing sharpness. Die, you bastard! As the burly man in tiger skin roared, the frost arrows pierced through the air and shot toward Wolf King. There are so many people who aren't afraid of death. Wolf King grinned and rushed forward, his 2 claws dancing wildly. Crack! Those seemingly sturdy frost arrows shattered like dead wood. This is so strong. The burly man in tiger skin's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes were filled with fear. However, when the last frost arrow shattered, his entire body and mind were drowned in fear. Plop! He collapsed weakly on the snowy ground. He didn't even have the courage to continue fighting. His eyes were filled with despair. Aren't you very powerful? Want to kill me? Come, get up. How dare you be so arrogant with your little strength? Wolf King stood in front of him. His bell-like eyes were filled with disdain. The burly man in tiger skin quivered and begged, Lord Wolf, please spare my life. But before he could finish speaking, the Wolf King swung its paw back and smashed his head into pieces. Even he is dead. How strong is that wolf? The others were scared out of their wits. They didn't have the desire to continue fighting. At the same time, the young man in leopard skin also looked at Wolf King and frowned. He's so strong. It seems that we can't get rid of them today. He muttered to himself and glanced at Qin Feiyong. Then he quietly retreated into the forest behind him. However, he didn't know that although Qin Feiyong was scanning the battlefield, he had been paying attention to him. So Qin Feiyong noticed him immediately. Qin Feiyong said telepathically, White-eyed wolf, pangolin, hurry up, don't leave a single one alive. Understood. The Wolf King responded and charged at the others like a ferocious beast. Corpses fell down one after another. Blood splattered everywhere. The snow here was dyed red, and the smell of blood was pungent. Soon, there were only a dozen people left. The pangolin's methods were also extremely cruel. Those who were killed by it didn't have an intact corpse. There were even a few people who were trampled into meat paste by its foot. We're no match for them. Run. The dozen or so people who were still alive were scared out of their wits and fled in panic. However, there were also a few people who were relatively calm. Let's go and capture that kid. As long as we capture him, no matter how strong those 2 beasts are, they won't be able to cause any trouble. I have the same idea. He looks like he's only 17 or 18 years old. He's definitely not strong. Let's go. The 2 middle-aged men acted in unison and rushed towards Qin Feiyong. Both of them were 3-star battle kings. Moreover, they both had low-grade martial skills and were quite strong. But obviously they had bumped into an iron plate this time. Qin Feiyong raised the corner of his mouth and turned to look at the 2 men. Kid, if you want to live, then obediently submit to capture. The 2 men sneered and reached out their hands to grab Qin Feiyong's arm. They didn't even use their battle chi. It could be said that they were looking down on him. "You'll have to pay the price for looking down on others," Qin Feiyang muttered. His gaze suddenly turned cold. He stretched out his hands and clenched them into fists. Battle, Qi covered his fists, and he fiercely punched the two men's lower abdomens. Ah! The two men screamed and were instantly sent flying, crashing into the snow. How could this be? Even he was so strong? The two men were in deep disbelief. Their heads tilted and they died on the spot. At the same time, Wolf King and the pangolin were also dealt with by those who were escaping. The ground was littered with broken corpses and severed limbs. Blood dyed the ground red for hundreds of meters. This place was like an Azura hell. It was terrifying. Wolf King and the pangolin were also dripping with blood. They were like two killing gods with monstrous ferocity. Wolf King ran over and said proudly, "Little Qinzi, you're quite efficient, aren't you?" The pangolin said disdainfully, "Tsh, I just killed a few hypocritical humans. What's there to show off?" Wolf King glared and said angrily, "Are you fucking looking for a beating? I'm a well-mannered and cultured pangolin. I won't bicker with a shameless person like you." The pangolin shook its head and turned into the size of a palm. It quickly jumped onto Qin Feiyang's shoulder. Well-mannered and cultured. Wolf King was stunned when he heard this. When he came back to his senses, he was furious. This bro has a bad temper. If I don't beat you to death today, I'll walk backwards in the future. It also turned into the size of a palm. With raging anger, it slapped at the pangolin with its claws. However, Qin Feiyang reached out and grabbed Wolf King. He frowned and said, "Stop fooling around. There's still one more person to be dealt with." "Who?" Wolf King and the pangolin looked around in surprise, but they didn't see anyone. "What are you looking for?" "I'm talking about that person called Ding Ming. He's really rotten wood." Qin Feiyang was helpless. "Ding Ming? Why didn't you kill him?" The two beasts looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. "I feel that he seems to know me very well, so he didn't do anything. I'd like to see who he is." Qin Feiyang turned around and looked behind the forest. Ding Ming had already disappeared. However, he left a complete footprint on the snow. The two beasts stayed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. Qin Feiyang followed the footprints and chased all the way. 100 breaths later, he finally saw Ding Ming in front of him, but he didn't make a sound and just hung behind silently. But in the end, Ding Ming didn't want to go anywhere else. Instead, he took a big detour, ran out of the dense forest, and rushed toward a city in front of him. That was White Fox City. The ancient city wall was more than 10 meters high and covered with snow. The buildings in the city were also covered with a thick layer of snow. At a glance, it was all snow white. Wolf King suddenly asked, "Little Qinzi, is there any place in the great Qin Empire where it snows all year round?" Qin Feiyang said, "There must be, and there are a lot of them." Wolf King said, "Is it possible that the Forgotten Land is one of those places?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. He dared to say other things, but he really didn't dare to be sure about this. Wolf King pondered for a moment and said, "Have you thought about a problem? How can we go back?" "Yes, that old witch didn't tell us how to go back." "Are we going to be trapped here for the rest of our lives?" The pangolin said in surprise. "It's useless to worry now. That old woman sent us here. She must have a way to go back. Let's wait until we find the flame of heavenly thunder." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Although he was talking to Wolf King and the others, his eyes were always on Ding Ming. Chapter 358. At the gate of the city, two burly men stood straight, like javelins. They were both wearing a trench coat made of the fur of a black panther. They looked very impressive. The Wolf King sighed. "The ferocious beasts living here are really miserable." "Yes. Along the way, all the humans we met, no matter strong or weak, were wearing animal fur coats. If this continues, the beasts of the Forgotten Zone will be extinct sooner or later. The pangolin said, somewhat indignant. Why could humans kill beasts wantonly like this? Qin Feiyang laughed. Extinction is a bit too serious. A beast fur coat can be worn for many years. The pangolin said, then you should also get one. There are ready-made ones here. Where is there ready-made ones? Why didn't I see them? Wolf King looked around suspiciously. The pangolin chuckled. Isn't it on your body? Wolf King was stunned, and suddenly his eyes revealed a fierce light, looking at the pangolin unkindly. The pangolin shrank his neck and hurriedly said, a gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Wolf King smirked. I like to be a villain, so what? The two little guys began to pinch each other again. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel a headache and said angrily, can you give me some peace and quiet? Seeing Qin Feiyang angry, Wolf King and the pangolin immediately became obedient, but they still stared at each other. Stop! Just as Qin Feiyang was about to enter the city, the two city guards looked at him, raised their eyebrows, and blocked in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked doubtfully, what's the matter, two big brothers? Were you the ones who killed people in the dense forest over there? One of the burly men asked. He had a black mole the size of a pellet on the left side of his face. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. When Ding Ming entered the city just now, he didn't greet these two people. He hadn't even spoken a single word, so how did these two know? The mole man said, don't try to quibble. When you were killing people, someone saw it with their own eyes from afar. So there are still fish that escaped the net. Qin Feiyang mumbled and said with a smile, two big brothers, we were also forced to kill them. Is that so? The two of them sneered. Yeah, they joined hands to blackmail me. What can I do? Qin Feiyang looked helpless. They were indeed in the wrong to extort you. However, you shouldn't have killed them all. Do you know what kind of impact your actions will have on White Fox City? The two of them shouted. Wolf King said telepathically, little Qin Zi, hurry up. Ding Ming is about to disappear. Qin Feiyang looked at the streets of the city. Ding Ming had reached a crossroad and was walking to the right. What are you looking at? Do you think we don't exist? The two burly men said angrily. They were very unhappy with the feeling of being ignored. The pangolin said telepathically, damn it, they are simply courting death. Don't be impulsive. These two just want some benefits. Problems that can be solved with money are not problems. Qin Feiyang secretly sneered. He took out 200 gold coins and handed them to the two men, saying with a smile, this is a small gift from me. The two men's eyes lit up, but when they glanced at the 200 gold coins, they frowned again. That's all. Are you trying to dismiss beggars? The two men sneered. Oh, are you not satisfied? Wolf King's eyes flashed fiercely. Qin Feiyang also raised his eyebrows and said, I'm alone and don't have much savings. Please don't mind. Is that so? Then show me your Cosmos bag. The burly man with moles stretched out his hand in front of Qin Feiyang and looked at Qin Feiyang arrogantly. You want to search my Cosmos bag? The smile on Qin Feiyang's face was instantly replaced by frost. You really don't want face. Do you still want it or not? He casually tossed 200 gold coins to the two of them, then turned around and walked into the city. What? How dare you be so arrogant here? The people coming in and out all looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. The two burly men's faces were also livid. Although their strength was not very good, they had support. After guarding the city gate for so long, no one had ever dared to say a word to them loudly, not to mention throwing gold coins at them and humiliating them. Stop right there, the two men shouted at the same time. Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. I told you to stop, didn't you hear me? The burly man with moles rushed behind Qin Feiyang in anger and immediately slapped him. However, Qin Feiyang was indifferent, as if he did not notice. The slap was about to land on his head. At this moment, the Wolf King waved its little paw and slapped the burly man's wrist, directly slapping the man's hand away. "You still dare to fight back?" The burly man with moles was furious. Battle Chi appeared in his palm, and he slapped toward the Wolf King. "One-star Battle King?" The Wolf King was stunned, and his eyes were filled with sarcasm. Why were there so many people who didn't know what was good for them? Boom! It waved its paw. The golden Battle Chi rolled out like a torrent. Ah! The burly man with moles screamed and was sent flying on the spot. In just an instant, his skin and flesh were lacerated, and he was dripping with blood. With a bang, he hit the city wall and then fell to the ground, unable to get up. It actually hurt the city guards? The surrounding crowd was dumbfounded. The other city guard stood at the city gate and saw this scene. His mouth was wide open, and he was filled with disbelief. "Take the 200 gold coins as money to buy healing pills for you," Qin Feiyang said without turning his head, and rushed toward the crossroad. Throughout the whole process, he did not even turn back to look at the two guards. The guard at the city gate ran to the burly man with moles and asked, "Are you okay?" "It's nothing serious." The burly man with moles shook his head. He climbed up in a sorry state and raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang's back. His eyes flashed with a terrifying, murderous light. "You stay here and watch. I'll go find the captain and let him suffer a fate worse than death." After the burly man with moles said this, he dragged his heavily injured body and quickly disappeared into the crowd. At this moment, Qin Feiyang also came to the center of the crossroad and turned to look at the street on the right. The streets were crowded with people and carriages, but Ding Ming was nowhere to be found. The pangolin said angrily, "Those two guards are really in the way." "Hey!" Wolf King laughed and said, "Don't you claim to be a gentleman? Why are you still scolding people?" The pangolin snorted coldly. "A gentleman also has times when he gets angry. Forget it. With your shameless character, you won't understand even if I tell you." Wolf King said disdainfully, "I don't understand, but as long as I'm here, Ding Ming can't run away." The pangolin was stunned and said, "That's right, your nose is more sensitive than a dog's. You're courting death." Wolf King was angry. What he hated most was people comparing his neck with a dog's nose. He jumped up and landed in front of the pangolin like lightning, and directly slapped the pangolin away with his paw. "Ruffian wolf, this king and you are irreconcilable." The pangolin roared again and again, startling everyone on the street. They all looked at it. A beast that could talk? Everyone surrounded it in surprise. "This is what happens when you talk dirty." Wolf King snorted and clapped his paws. Qin Feiyang pushed the crowd and walked in front of the pangolin. He said helplessly, "Can you guys stop?" The pangolin said angrily, "It's not my fault. You should scold Ruffian Wolf." "What did you say?" Wolf King's eyes flashed fiercely. These few times it was the pangolin who started the trouble first, and now it was blaming it? "Enough! You're all my masters." "Masters, can you give me some face?" Qin Feiyang's face was filled with anger. He really wanted to slap them. The pangolin smiled embarrassedly. It did not dare to be this fierce person's master. Although it had not known Qin Feiyang for long, it already knew his character. Although he looked very easy to talk to now, if he really got angry, it would definitely not end well. As a person, one had to know how to observe people's expressions. As a beast, it had to know when to stop. It jumped onto Qin Feiyang's right shoulder and lay there obediently, like an obedient baby. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and said to Wolf King, "Quickly track Ding Ming." "Hypocrite!" Wolf King stared at the pangolin, sniffed carefully, and said, "Go straight." Qin Feiyang looked at the crowd in front of him and said with a smile, "Please make way." The people retreated to the sides and made a path. but a young woman in her teens did not move aside and blocked the path. She was wearing a snow-white mink fur coat. She was about 1.7 meters tall, with delicate facial features, slim clothes, and a blush on her cheeks in the cold weather. Her fine black hair was tied up high with an exquisite jade hairpin inserted into it, revealing her extraordinary background. Because the jade hairpin, whether in terms of workmanship or quality, could be regarded as the best, ordinary people could not afford it at all. She looked at Wolf King curiously, her big eyes shining with a strange light. Qin Feiyang asked, "Miss, what's the matter?" The woman in mink fur stretched out her slender finger and pointed at the Wolf King. "Sell it to me." Qin Feiyang frowned and was about to refuse. But Wolf King said first, "No need to ask him. Just tell me, what can you give me? If I'm satisfied, I'll abandon the dark and join the light and follow you in the future." It laughed sinisterly. Abandon the dark and join the light? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. The woman in mink fur's eyes lit up, and she looked at Wolf King and said, "As long as you follow me, you can have whatever you want." Wolf King asked, "Really?" "I'm a woman of my word." The woman in mink fur nodded. Wolf King laughed and said, "I want to go to the Purple Sun tribe. Do you have a way?" "Why are you going to the Purple Sun tribe?" The woman in mink fur was shocked. The surrounding crowd also began to discuss in low voices. Their eyes filled with bewilderment. Wolf King said, "Don't ask so many questions. Just tell me, do you have a way?" The woman in mink fur said, "Of course, my father knows the coordinates of the Purple Sun tribe." Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. He thought that it would take a lot of effort to find the coordinates of the Purple Sun tribe, but he did not expect to find it as soon as he entered White Fox City. Chapter 359. Wolf King was also overjoyed and jumped onto the shoulder of the woman in mink fur. Then it began to fish for information. But Wolf King and the woman in mink fur were communicating with each other through telepathy, so no one else could hear them. The pangolin looked at Wolf King and then at Qin Feiyang. Seeing that there was a hint of a smile in Qin Feiyang's eyes, it used telepathy and asked in confusion, "Qin Feiyang, is there something wrong with your head?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "What do you mean?" The pangolin said, "Ruffian Wolf is about to betray us, and you're still laughing." "Betray us?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it won't betray us." "You're so confident." The pangolin was surprised. "You won't understand my friendship with Ruffian Wolf." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. At this moment, Wolf King suddenly shouted, "Little girl Meng, aren't you being too insincere? Forget it. I'll continue to follow little Qin Z." After that, Wolf King jumped and landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. The woman in mink fur frowned. Qin Feiyang said through telepathy, "How is it? Did you find out?" Wolf King said, "Let's go first. We'll talk later." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he walked past the woman in mink fur. The woman in mink fur turned to look at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "How many gold coins do you want before you're willing to sell it to me? If it's not willing, what can I do?" Qin Feiyang turned his head and smiled at the woman, then turned around and strode away. "Humph! Wait, you'll soon know the consequences of rejecting me." The woman in mink fur snorted and also left. In the crowd, while chasing Ding Ming, Qin Feiyang asked, "White-eyed Wolf, what's going on?" Wolf King said angrily, "That woman insisted that brother go home with her before she told brother the coordinates of the Ziyang tribe." The pangolin said in realization, "So you approached her to get the coordinates?" Wolf King said, "What do you think?" The pangolin said, "I thought you were going to betray me." "Betrayal?" Wolf King was stunned. He shook his head and said, "What an idiot. In this world, anyone could betray Qin Feiyang except for Wolf King." The pangolin would not be able to understand the logic behind it in such a short time. Wolf King ignored it and sent his voice. That woman's background isn't simple at all. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang said. Her Meng family is the biggest family in White Fox City. Moreover, her father is the mayor of White Fox City and has the strength of a one-star combat emperor. Her grandfather is even stronger. He's a 3-star combat emperor. Wolf King sent his voice. The pangolin said in surprise. Doesn't that mean White Fox City belongs to her family? You're not stupid. Wolf King glanced at it and said, White Fox City is under the control of the Meng family, but they don't belong to any tribe. But because of the Meng family's strength, all the tribes within 1,000 miles, including the few big tribes nearby, will give them some face. Also, White Fox City is a gathering place for rogue cultivators. Every day, a large number of people come to trade. Therefore, the Meng family has set up a trading pavilion opposite the mayor's mansion. Even the big tribes often come here to buy resources. Wolf King said in one breath. His eyes were serious. The Meng family's influence in White Fox City was too strong. It wouldn't be easy to get the coordinates. The pangolin said, Only the Meng family knows the coordinates of the Ziyang tribe. Other than the Meng family, no one else knows, including the leaders of the big tribes nearby. Wolf King said. Why is that? The pangolin was puzzled. I heard from the woman that the Ziyang tribe is too far away from here. No one is willing to go there. The Meng family knows the coordinates because the woman's grandfather is an alchemist. He once went to the Sky Thunder City in the Ziyang tribe to buy alchemy recipes. Wolf King said. The pangolin was stunned and asked, Where is the Sky Thunder City? Wolf King shook his head and said, I don't know. I didn't have enough time to inquire about it. He added, But there is one thing that is very strange. What is it? Qin Feiyang and the pangolin were puzzled. Wolf King said, There is only one alchemist in 1,000 miles. How is that possible? Qin Feiyang was shocked. There were indeed very few alchemists, but it shouldn't be so pitiful. It's true. That woman said it herself. Only her grandfather is an alchemist. This is also the main reason why the Meng family can dominate the White Fox City. Wolf King said. What is the saying of the humans? Oh, right, when the tiger is absent, the monkey will be king. I'm afraid this is the Meng family. The pangolin laughed evilly. We're just passers-by in the Forgotten Land. Whether they are tigers or monkeys, it has nothing to do with us. We just want the coordinates. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, but there was a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Sky Thunder City, Heavenly Thunder Flame, both of them had the word Heavenly Thunder. Could it be related? While he was deep in thought, he came to another fork in the road, glanced at the 2 streets in front of him, and asked, Which direction did Ding Ming go? Wolf King sniffed carefully. Left. We have to hurry. There are too many people on the streets, and his smell is getting fainter. I can't tell. Wolf King said. Qin Feiyang frowned and used wind riding steps to speed down. More than 10 breaths passed. Qin Feiyang came to the center of White Fox City. The city, Lord's Mansion, was right in front of him. It was more than 20 meters tall and covered in thick snow. Guards stood tall and straight all around. They looked straight ahead with sharp eyes, and a murderous aura exuded from their bodies. Opposite the gate of the city Lord's Mansion, there was a slightly short hall. Similarly, there was a guard every 3 steps and a sentry every 7 steps. The security was extremely tight. There were 3 bold words engraved on the gate of the hall. Trading Pavilion. Many people came in and out in a hurry. Stop! The moment he arrived, Wolf King shouted secretly. Qin Feiyang slammed on the brakes. Wolf King glanced at the city Lord's Mansion and then at the Trading Pavilion. His eyes flashed and he said, He entered the Trading Pavilion. What is he doing in the Trading Pavilion? The pangolin was puzzled. Let's go take a look and we'll know. Qin Feiyong strode in. Immediately, a young woman of 17 or 18 years old came forward. The young woman looked at Wolf King and the pangolin with a hint of joy in her eyes. It was obvious. Both of these small beasts had consumed the transformation elixir. This also proved that the person in front of her was definitely a rich man. She looked at Qin Feiyong and smiled. "Young master, is there anything I can do for you? There's no need to entertain me. I'm just strolling around." Qin Feiyong smiled and walked past the young woman, scanning the hall. A hint of disappointment appeared in the young woman's eyes, but she wasn't discouraged. She walked to Qin Feiyong's side and said with a smile, "Everyone who comes is a guest. Whether young master wants to buy something or not, I should entertain you well." Qin Feiyong looked at her in surprise and said to Wolf King and the pangolin, "You two pay attention. I'll go take a look at the elixirs here." The two beasts nodded in agreement. Then they carefully scanned everyone in the hall. Qin Feiyong said to the young woman, "Take me to see the elixirs." "Elixirs?" The young woman's eyes lit up and she said with a smile, "The elixirs are all on the second floor. Young master, please follow me." "There's a second floor?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. The young woman was stunned and asked, "Young master, don't you know? Is this young master's first time in the trading pavilion?" Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "I've been here a few years ago. It's been too long, so I forgot." The young woman suddenly realized and said with a smile, "Our trading pavilion has a total of 6 floors. The first floor only sells some very ordinary things and daily necessities. The second floor sells elixirs and medicinal materials. The third, fourth, and fifth floors are a super large auction house." The young woman explained. Qin Feiyong said, "What about the 6th floor?" "The 6th floor is the VIP hall. Only the distinguished guests of the trading pavilion or those who have big deals are qualified to go up," the young woman said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Wolf King said with a voice transmission, "Little Qin Zi, I can't find Ding Ming. His scent isn't on the 1st floor either." The pangolin said, "I didn't see him either." "Then let's go to the 2nd floor." Qin Feiyong responded secretly and said to the young woman with a smile, "Take me to the 2nd floor." "Okay." The young woman nodded and led the way in front. After a while, she came to a staircase and walked up quickly. Wolf King's eyes lit up and he said to himself, "There's Ding Ming's scent here. I'd like to see who he is." A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyong's eyes. On the 2nd floor it was much quieter. There were only 50 or 60 people in the hall, which was hundreds of miles long. On the ground, there were transparent counters, neatly placed. Inside, there were all kinds of medicinal materials and elixirs, which were dazzling. "There's no one here either?" Qin Feiyong glanced at the 50 or 60 people and didn't find Ding Ming. Was he in the auction house? But at this moment, Wolf King said with a voice transmission, "Ding Ming's scent is in the hall." How is that possible? Qin Feiyong looked carefully again, even the staff members. But in the end, he didn't see Ding Ming. But why did Wolf King say that Ding Ming's scent was here? Could it be, suddenly, he thought of a possibility. Ding Ming might have changed his appearance. At this time, the young woman asked, "Young master, what kind of elixir do you need?" Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Just take a look." The young woman led him towards a counter. At the same time, at the opposite counter, there was a black-haired old man wearing a leopard skin. He was looking at the elixirs on the counter, but his gaze would occasionally glance at Qin Feiyong. Wolf King had been looking for Ding Ming the whole time and also saw the black-clothed old man. At first, it didn't care, but soon it realized that something was wrong, because Ding Ming's scent was coming from the black-clothed old man. "So it's you." Chapter 360. Qin Feiyong was holding a healing pill and looking at it carefully. Hearing Wolf King's sound transmission, His eyes flashed, and he turned to look at the black-haired old man. A person's appearance could change, but the smell they emitted would not change. He believed in Wolf King's sense of smell, so it would definitely not be wrong. But he only glanced at it for a moment, then turned to look at the young woman and said with a smile, "Is there no better quality medicinal pill?" Young master is not satisfied. The young woman frowned. Her expression was a little displeased. This was the best medicinal pill in White Fox City, and he actually didn't like it? However, the young woman did not know that Qin Feiyang was not dissatisfied, but very dissatisfied. This healing pill was just an ordinary medicinal pill. Moreover, even among the ordinary healing pills, it was considered a low-grade item. How could such a medicinal pill enter the eyes of a top-grade alchemist who could refine 2-pill veins? Even the medicinal pills that he casually refined were stronger than this. But he just smiled, put the healing pill on the counter, and turned to walk to another counter. Although the young woman was a little dissatisfied, she still followed. Because in her eyes, Qin Feiyang was a little fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. In fact, Qin Feiyang was not in the mood to look at these medicinal pills at all. He had been paying attention to the black-haired old man. But after a while he came to a counter. A fiery red flower attracted his gaze. It was actually a 9 suns flower, and beside the 9 suns flower there was a red fireglass tree. He had really picked up a treasure. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and was about to ask the young woman about the price. But he suddenly frowned and asked secretly, "Don't you think it's strange?" "What's strange?" Wolf King and Pangolin were puzzled. Within 1,000 miles, only that woman's grandfather is an alchemist, then why would he sell medicinal herbs in the trading pavilion? Qin Feiyang said, "Logically speaking, the Meng family should directly refine these medicinal herbs into medicinal pills, because the price of a finished medicinal pill would be several times higher than that of medicinal herbs. Moreover, medicinal herbs were only useful to alchemists. If one was not an alchemist, no matter how precious the herbs were, it would be useless. In this entire area, besides the Meng family, there were no other alchemists. Who would come here to sell these herbs? For some reason, Qin Feiyang had an intuition when he saw these herbs. The Meng family's selling of these medicinal herbs was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Wolf King and Pangolin also felt a little strange. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was sizing up the medicinal ingredients, a strange look flashed across the young woman's eyes. She asked, "Young master, do you want these herbs?" Qin Feiyang asked, "How much is this 9 suns flower?" 200,000 gold coins per flower. There's more in the warehouse. If young master needs a large amount, I can give you a discount." The young woman smiled. "So cheap?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "How many?" The young woman said, "I'm not sure, but there should be no less than 20 flowers." Qin Feiyang was secretly surprised. 9 suns flowers were rare in the spiritual state, but he didn't expect there to be so many here. Wolf King urged, "Little Qin Zi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and buy them all." Qin Feiyang secretly said, "Don't worry, let's figure out the situation first." He believed in his intuition that there must be a secret behind the medicinal herbs sold in the trading pavilion. At this moment, the black-haired old man opposite bought an elixir, put it in his arms, and walked towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang noticed it immediately. A glint flashed across his eyes. After the black-haired old man walked over, he chuckled and said, "Young man, do you have time to talk?" Qin Feiyang turned to look at the black-haired old man and asked in confusion, "Old man, are you talking to me?" The black-haired old man nodded. "Strange. Why would he take the initiative to approach me?" Qin Feiyang muttered and said with a smile, "If I have time, what does the old man want to talk about?" The black-haired old man glanced at the young woman and said in a hoarse voice, "Let's find a restaurant and talk slowly." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. Seeing this, the young woman hurriedly said, "Young master, do you still want to buy these herbs? I'm not an alchemist. What use do I have for these herbs?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, took out 50 gold coins, and said, "This is for your hard work." "Thank you, young master." The young woman's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly accepted it and bowed to thank him. "It's fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at the black-haired old man. "Old man, after you." The black-haired old man nodded and turned to walk to the first floor. Qin Feiyang followed closely behind. After the two left one after another, a door in the corner opened. A middle-aged man with a square face walked out from inside. The middle-aged man walked to the young woman's side and asked, "Why is that kid asking about herbs? Is he an alchemist?" "No." The young woman shook her head and said, "I think he's just curious." The middle-aged man said, "All right then, continue to watch. If anyone buys herbs, immediately report to me." "Yes." The young woman nodded. The middle-aged man turned to leave, but suddenly turned back to look at the young woman and asked, "Did you see Ding Ming?" The young woman said, "I saw him come back, but he suddenly disappeared." The middle-aged man said angrily, "The trading pavilion is so busy all day, and he still has time to run around. When you see him, tell him to come see me immediately." "Okay," the young woman replied. At the same time, Qin Feiyang followed the black-haired old man and walked out of the trading pavilion. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice, "White-eyed wolf, are you sure he's Ding Ming?" Wolf King said, "Brother is sure." "Strange, what does he want to do?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The black-haired old man suddenly took a step back and walked side by side with Qin Feiyang, whispering, "Young man, do you know why this old man suddenly came to see you?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, "Please enlighten me." The black-haired old man said, "Because you're going to buy those herbs." Qin Feiyang's heart trembled and asked calmly, "Is there a problem with those herbs?" "There's a big problem." The black-haired old man's eyes flashed and said, "You should know that only the Meng family has alchemists in this area." Qin Feiyang nodded. The black-haired old man said, "If that's the case, why are they selling herbs? Have you ever thought about this?" "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head, pretending to be puzzled. The black-haired old man said, "To tell you the truth, there are other alchemists in this area." Qin Feiyang raised his brows and asked, "Where are the other alchemists?" The black-haired old man said, "They've all been killed by the Meng family." "What?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. "The Meng family sells herbs in the trading pavilion to attract people to buy them. You know that herbs don't have much use for ordinary people. Therefore, the people who would go and buy medicinal herbs must be alchemists. And once someone buys herbs, they'll be assassinated by the Meng family immediately." The black-haired old man said in a deep voice, "Why would the Meng family do that?" The pangolin was bewildered. The black-haired old man said, "It's simple. Without other alchemists, the Meng family can safely guard White Fox City." The pangolin snorted coldly. "The Meng family is really despicable." The black-haired old man sneered. "If the Meng family wasn't despicable, they would have been annihilated by the nearby tribes." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he asked suspiciously, "Old man, this should be a secret of the Meng family, right? How do you know about it?" "I have a friend who works in the trading pavilion. One time, when I was drinking with him, he had too much to drink and told me about this secret." The black-haired old man said. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Then why are you helping me?" "I'm helping you because you're a stranger and I don't want you to get into trouble. There's another reason. My grandson is also an alchemist. Just like you, he didn't know about this secret at the time and went to the trading pavilion to buy herbs happily. In the end, he was targeted by the Meng family and died outside the city. By the time I found him, he was already a cold corpse." the black-haired old man said with hatred in his eyes. Qin Feiyang said, "The Meng family is truly heartless. There's nothing I can do. The Meng family is too powerful. Even if I know about this secret, I won't dare to say it. Young man, don't talk nonsense. Otherwise, you'll get yourself killed," the black-haired old man warned. "Thank you for your reminder," Qin Feiyang said. The black-haired old man said with a smile, "We're quite faded. Why don't you accompany me for a few drinks?" "I'd love to," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "I remember that there's a restaurant in front. Let's go." The black-haired old man chuckled and walked forward quickly. Qin Feiyang followed him silently. Wolf King said telepathically, "Little Qin Zi, what the hell is this man doing?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "If I'm wrong, he said this to gain our trust and then take the opportunity to kill us." Wolf King said, "Then is what he said true? The Meng family is selling herbs to lure alchemists to buy them. It should be true. But what grandson? He must have ignored us and wanted to gain our sympathy." Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. This person thought he was very smart, but he didn't know that Wolf King had already seen through his identity. The pangolin beast said, "Then what are we waiting for? Kill him directly." Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "There's no hurry. I want to see if he has any accomplices." A moment later, the two entered a restaurant. According to the black-haired old man, all the restaurants in White Fox City were the properties of the Meng family. So here they had to be careful with their words. Under the lead of a waiter, the two entered a private room. Not long after, the waiter brought over a few bottles of wine and a few signature dishes that smelled and tasted good. Qin Feiyang tasted it. There was no problem with the wine and dishes. Then, the old man and the young man drank and chatted. Time passed little by little. Qin Feiyang slowly realized that this person seemed to want to get him drunk. Straightforward. He took advantage of this person's intention. After secretly instructing Wolf King and the pangolin beast, they began to pretend to be drunk. About an hour later, Chapter 361. At this time it was already late at night. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the two beasts fall, the black-haired old man's old eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. He got up and walked to Qin Feiyang's side, stretched out his hand to push Qin Feiyang back, and asked, "Little brother, are you okay?" Qin Feiyang was snoring and did not respond. At this moment, the black-haired old man laughed, full of sarcasm. Immediately, he took out a facial restoration elixir and swallowed it, and his appearance began to change greatly. After restoring his true appearance, who else could he be but Ding Ming? Ding Ming, who had restored his true appearance, did not kill Qin Feiyang and the others. He opened the door and walked out. Wolf King was surprised and said, "Little Qin Zi, what's going on? Why did he leave?" "Don't worry," Qin Feiyang whispered. Soon, Ding Ming also returned to the pavilion, but there was one more person beside him. This was also a young man, about 25 or 26 years old, wearing a white tiger skin coat. When this person looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, his eyes flashed with cold light. After Ding Ming closed the door, he said proudly, "Cousin, how is it? All of you are here. Am I powerful?" "Yes, yes." The tiger-skinned young man gave a thumbs up, looked at Qin Feiyang with resentment, and asked, "How did you do it?" "I didn't kill them outside the city, so I went straight back to the trading pavilion. I wanted to wait for a chance to kill them later. But who would have thought that they also went to the trading pavilion? I found them as soon as they entered the door. At that time, I thought of a plan. I ran to the stairs on the second floor, took the facial alteration elixir, and turned into an old man. Just when they were about to buy medicinal herbs, I took the opportunity to get close to them. In order to gain their trust, I spent a lot of time talking. Cousin, when you kill them with your own hands, you must reward me well." Ding Ming chuckled. By medicinal herbs? The tiger-skinned young man was stunned and said in surprise, "Is he an alchemist?" "I don't know." Ding Ming shook his head. The tiger-skinned youth snorted. "It doesn't matter if they are alchemists or not. As long as I can kill them with my own hands, it can be considered as revenge for Grandpa." Grandfather? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. Who was this person? But at this moment, Ding Ming's words resolved the doubts in his heart. Killing intent flickered in Ding Ming's eyes as he said, "Anyone who dares to touch our He clan won't have a good ending." The tiger-skinned youth sneered and said, "This man and the pangolin will definitely die, but we must keep this wolf alive." "Why?" Ding Ming was puzzled. The tiger-skinned youth smiled and said, "I heard that Miss Meng has taken a fancy to it. Let's send it over later. Miss Meng will be happy and will definitely reward us. There's such a thing." Ding Ming was bewildered. "That's not all. There's something else. When this person entered the city, he injured the city guards. Now, the captain of the guards has given the order to search the entire city for them. Even if we don't kill them, they will die sooner or later. But this way, I won't be able to kill them with my own hands." The tiger-skinned youth sneered. Ding Ming said, "Then hurry up and do it, in case something bad happens." But before his voice died away, a calm voice sounded. "You should let the captain of the guards kill me, because in this way you won't die now." Qin Feiyong raised his head and glanced at the two like lightning. "What's going on?" When Ding Ming and the other two saw this, their faces were immediately filled with bewilderment. "Are you surprised?" Qin Feiyong got up and looked at Ding Ming. "We have already seen through your identity in the trading pavilion." The Wolf King and the pangolin also got up, their eyes flashing with astonishment. "What?" Ding Ming's face turned pale. "Seen through? Then why didn't they kill him in the trading pavilion?" "If I kill you in the trading pavilion, I won't be able to lure the person beside you out, right?" Qin Feiyong, always cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, leaving no future trouble." Qin Feiyong smiled. He had been wondering if Ding Ming had an accomplice. In the end, he really caught a big fish. He looked at the tiger-skinned youth and said, "If I'm not wrong, you should be He Yuan's grandson, right?" The tiger-skinned youth's pupils constricted. Without needing him to answer, Qin Feiyong already had the answer in his heart. He said to himself, "White-eyed wolf, do it." The Wolf King instantly activated the Fury of Fury, jumped up, landed in front of Ding Ming, and smashed out with his claws. Ah! A scream resounded through the night sky. Ding Ming flew out like a meteorite on the spot, crashing into the wall behind him. Bang! A big hole was made in the wall, and the railings of the corridor outside were smashed. With a loud bang, he fell into the lobby below. A dining table was smashed into pieces. Beside the table, there were 5 young people drinking and chatting. The table was broken, and the wine and dishes splashed all over their bodies. At that moment, they were furious. They suddenly got up, looked down at Ding Ming, and found that he was already dead. They immediately looked upstairs. At the same time, the guests at the other tables also raised their heads, their faces full of surprise and doubt. When the waiters of the restaurant came to their senses, they angrily ran upstairs. Who had the guts to cause trouble here? Were they tired of living? At this moment, a figure broke out of the door. It was the tiger-skinned youth. At this moment, his face was full of panic. After running out of the private room, he jumped down and landed beside Ding Ming. Dead. Immediately, his eyes were full of hatred. "Let's see where you can run today." Wolf King also ran out, carrying an astonishing ferocious aura, and swooped down towards the leopard-skinned youth. Why does this wolf look a little familiar? Everyone was puzzled. "It's the one that injured the city guard." Someone exclaimed, "What? It actually dares to appear?" Everyone was dumbfounded. "Cousin, I will avenge you," the tiger-skinned youth said in a low voice, raised his head and looked at Wolf King with resentment, and fled towards the door. "Where do you want to go?" But at this moment, Qin Feiyang and the pangolin beast suddenly stopped outside the door. He knew that the tiger-skinned youth would escape. So, when the tiger-skinned youth broke out of the door, he also jumped down from the window with the pangolin beast to stop him at the door. "It's him." Everyone's pupils shrank. It was this person who used gold coins to hit the two city guards. His attitude was even more arrogant than that wolf. "Do you have to kill me?" In front of him was Qin Feiyang and the pangolin beast blocking the way, and behind him was the violent Wolf King. The tiger-skinned youth was sandwiched in the middle and had nowhere to run. Moreover, he was only a 7-star martial grandmaster and had not even reached the War King. How could he be Qin Feiyang's opponent? "I have always been a person who doesn't offend others if they don't offend me. Since you are from the He tribe and want to kill me, of course I won't be polite," Qin Feiyang said. As soon as he finished, the pangolin beast on his shoulder turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the tiger-skinned youth. "Who can save me?" The tiger-skinned youth looked helplessly at the diners around him, but no one said a word, and no one extended a helping hand. What a joke! They even dared to beat up the guards. What else did they not dare to do? No one wanted to look for abuse. However, at this moment, a burly middle-aged man walked out from the back hall. "Steward Meng, please save me." The tiger-skinned youth hurriedly cried out as if he had seen his savior. The middle-aged man glanced at the scene and shouted to Qin Feiyang, "Quickly tell those two beasts to stop." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. The pangolin beast braked and stopped, turning to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Ignore him." "Interesting." The pangolin beast chuckled. This kind of day was too exciting. Ferocious might exploded. It leaped up, its battle chi surging, transforming into a bright arrow. Whoosh! It pierced through the tiger-skinned youth's chest like lightning, leaving a palm-sized bloody hole. At that moment, blood spurted out like a pillar. "Qin Feiyang, you will die a horrible death." The tiger-skinned youth roared hysterically, his body falling down, lying in a pool of blood dead. Killed again? And in front of Steward Meng? Did these guys eat the guts of a leopard? Weren't they afraid that the Meng family would kill them? Steward Meng was also stunned. White Fox City was his Meng family's territory. Even if people from the nearby large tribes came here, they had to abide by the rules set by the Meng family. But this man and two beasts not only killed people here, but also treated him as heir, turning a deaf ear to his words. It was simply unforgivable. Boom! A powerful aura roared out from his body. It was the 9-star Battle King. He looked coldly at Qin Feiyang and the Wolf King and shouted, "You two are really daring. Kneel down right now." Wolf King turned around and stared with his bell-like eyes, saying disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? What right do you have to make Lord Wolf kneel?" "Good, very good. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant after I cripple you." Steward Meng was furious. He suddenly slapped towards Wolf King. His battle chi was like a rainbow, containing a shocking, murderous intent. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang landed in front of Wolf King and said, "I wanted to explain to you, but it seems that it's necessary. Since you want to fight, then come. What can a mere Meng family do to me?" "A mere Meng family? Is this guy crazy?" What a domineering young man. The surrounding crowd was shocked. As soon as he finished speaking, Steward Meng's battle chi rushed in front of him. Seeing that he was about to be drowned by the battle chi, Qin Feiyang raised his hand and waved, and a golden light appeared in his palm. Under everyone's incredulous gaze, Steward Meng's battle chi turned in the air and rushed towards him. What kind of battle art is this? Everyone was shocked. Steward Meng was also dumbfounded. He was full of confidence. Even if he couldn't kill this man and two beasts, he could still cripple them. But who would have thought that such a sudden change would occur? The battle chi roared and instantly drowned him. A blood-curdling scream immediately rang out. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also retreated, a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His arm was even more lacerated, but this injury was worth it. "Leave the rest to me." Wolf King smiled sinisterly, rushed in front of Steward Meng in a few steps, and slapped his lower body with a claw. Roar! Crack! Accompanied by a pig-like scream. Steward Meng's balls were crushed, and his bird died. Seeing this, the surrounding men, as well as the shop assistants who rushed over to help, couldn't help but cover their lower body. Their crotch was cold. He smashed Steward Meng's balls with one move. Chapter 362. Wolf King looked down at Steward Meng and said contemptuously, "You dare to be arrogant with just this little strength?" Steward Meng endured the pain and said sternly, "My Meng family will not let you off." Still arrogant? Wolf King was stunned and his eyes were fierce. Battle chi gushed out, and with a claw, it directly smashed Steward Meng's chi-si. Ah! Steward Meng screamed miserably. His face was distorted, and his heart was full of resentment. His chi-si is broken. Then, even if he survives, he will only be a cripple in the future. They are really challenging the dignity of the Meng family by doing this. The surrounding crowd was discussing. This man and two beasts were simply lawless. Wolf King laughed and said, "Old man, are you still arrogant now?" Steward Meng roared, "You will be torn into pieces and your bones will be crushed to ashes." Stubborn. Looks like I can only use my ultimate move. Wolf King laughed evilly. What ultimate move? Everyone was surprised. But in the next moment, everyone's face couldn't help but twitch. That bastard's ultimate move was actually a pool of urine? Too shameless. Too cheap. Provoking it was destined to be a tragedy. After Wolf King finished, he shook that thing and shouted, "Come, come, come, continue to be arrogant." But before he finished speaking, he was stunned. Steward Meng was already dead. Although his chi-si was destroyed, he shouldn't have died so quickly. Obviously, it was because of Wolf King's urine. He was so angry that he died. How did he die? I haven't used my ultimate move yet. Wolf King was a little angry. What? There's still an ultimate move. The eyes of the surrounding diners widened, and they immediately scattered, fleeing toward the door without looking back. They were afraid of getting themselves into trouble. "What are you doing? Didn't you see the guard captain coming? Get out of my way." At this moment, an arrogant shout came from outside the door. "There's something to play with again." Wolf King's eyes lit up. It turned into the size of a palm and jumped onto Qin Feiyang's shoulder. At the same time, he also snatched Steward Meng's Cosmos bag. The pangolin said in disdain, "Brother Wolf, why are you so despicable? You're practically invincible. Are you itching for a beating again?" Wolf King glared at the pangolin with hostility. The pangolin shrank its neck and asked, "Qin Feiyang, what do we do now?" "What should we do?" Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, "Of course, we have to meet them." With that said, he walked to the front of a dining table, turned around and sat down. He raised his head and looked at the door, waiting for the guard captain to come in. "He's not running away?" Seeing this, the waiters of the restaurant were dumbfounded. If it were anyone else, upon hearing that the captain of the guards had arrived, they would have fled long ago. But this person was just sitting there leisurely. Was he not afraid at all? A short while later, all the diners ran out. Following closely, a middle-aged man wearing a golden tiger skin strode into the restaurant under the escort of a group of guards. There were a total of 11 people. The big man with a black mole was also in the crowd. As soon as he saw Qin Feiyang and Wolf King, the big man with a black mole became angry and said to the captain of the guards, "Sir, it's them!" The captain of the guards glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others, then scanned the messy lobby. When he saw Steward Meng lying in a pool of blood, his face suddenly sank. What's going on? Why did Steward Meng die? The captain of the guards shouted. They killed Steward Meng. The group of waiters pointed at Qin Feiyang and the others indignantly. What? Coming to our Meng family's territory and killing our Meng family's people. How preposterous! Captain of the guards, quickly take them down. The big man with a black mole and the other guards were all ferocious and murderous. The captain of the guards also had a gloomy face. This was especially true when he saw Qin Feiyang, still sitting there leisurely. The anger in his heart was unable to be contained. Drag him up for me. He waved his hand, and 2 guards immediately walked out of the crowd and rushed toward Qin Feiyang. One of them was the big man with a black mole. Little beast, even if the Heavenly King descends to the mortal world today, he can't save you, he muttered secretly, and the murderous look in his eyes was not concealed at all. As soon as they rushed to Qin Feiyang, the 2 stretched out their arms and grabbed at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 2 and said lightly, I advise you not to touch me. The 2 were slightly stunned. What? With the captain of the guards here, you dare to attack us? Boy, we advise you, you'd better be honest, or there won't be anyone to collect your corpse later. The 2 smiled disdainfully and continued to grab at Qin Feiyang. At the same time, the other guards, as well as the waiters of the restaurant, couldn't help but show ridicule. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone, then looked at the big man with a black mole again and said lightly, I really don't dare to attack you, but I dare to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, the murderous look in his eyes surged. He pointed at them in the air. The red sword Qi turned into 2 flashes of lightning and pierced through the hearts of the 2 men. Immediately, blood splashed in the sky. Ah! Accompanied by a scream, the 2 men suddenly fell to the ground and died. What? In front of the captain of the guards, he dares to kill! The people present were all stunned. The diners who had escaped before gathered outside the door and looked at this scene with disbelief. They had seen a lot of arrogant people, but it was the first time they met such an arrogant young man. Looking at his appearance, he didn't put the Meng family in his eyes at all. Qin Feiyang lowered his arm, looked up at the captain of the guards, and said with a faint smile, It's so comfortable to sit. Why don't you sit? The captain of the guards' face darkened and said, Do you know what the consequences of your actions will be? Qin Feiyang said, I'm all ears. White Fox City is my Meng family's territory. What my Meng family says is what it is. Your current behavior is challenging the dignity of my Meng family. The captain of the guards shouted. So what? Qin Feiyang said. So what? The captain of the guards was so angry that he laughed and said, You will die a horrible death. Is that so? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He looked at the captain of the guards. This person's aura was even weaker than Steward Meng, and he dared to be arrogant in front of him? Just because he was from the Meng family, did he think that he wouldn't dare to kill him? How naive! Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, Don't leave a single one alive, kill them all. Boom! Wolf King and the pangolin rushed out from his shoulder at almost the same time. Ferocious aura erupted. This was a one-sided massacre. One by one, the guards and waiters fell down. Blood flowed on the ground, dyeing the entire hall red. Corpses were scattered messily on the ground. The pungent smell of blood filled the air. This place was like Azura hell, and it was too horrible to look at. You! How dare you be so arrogant? The captain of the guards looked at this scene, and his anger rushed to the top of his head, making him almost go crazy. Wolf King finished off the last guard, turned to look at him, and chuckled. I still want to kill you. What should I do? The captain of the guard's pupils constricted, and he turned around without hesitation and fled outside. He was just a captain. His strength was only a 5-star battle monarch. He dared to be so arrogant because he had the Meng family support. However, the man and 2 beasts in front of him obviously didn't buy it. He had to run. However, facing Wolf King, who was full of killing intent, how could he run away? Wolf King stood up and caught up with him in a few steps. He smashed the captain's head with his claws, and blood splattered on the spot. The hearts of the people gathered outside the gate were surging with waves of shock. They didn't know how to describe this man and 2 beasts. Arrogant, lawless? None of them were enough. Whoosh! At this moment, Qin Feiyong stood up and walked toward the door. Everyone retreated to the side in fear. After killing so many people, he wanted to leave just like that? The Meng family probably wouldn't agree. Qin Feiyong walked out of the restaurant and walked along the street toward the city, Lord's mansion. Ding Ming's matter had been settled, and it was time to ask the Meng family for the coordinates. The night in the Forgotten Land was like a piece of ink. Moreover, it was colder than the day. On both sides of the street, there were large lanterns hanging at intervals, emitting a hazy light. The city, Lord's mansion. In the meeting hall, a middle-aged man wearing a golden tiger skin coat sat on the main seat. He was the patriarch of the Meng family and also the city lord of White Fox City. Beside him, there was a woman wearing mink fur. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, and it would break with a flick of a finger. She was Meng Tong. In front of the father and daughter, there was a middle-aged man standing respectfully. He was 8 feet tall and had a strong back and a bare waist. He was like a small giant, filled with a valiant aura. The mink-fur woman looked at the valiant man and asked, "Have you investigated his background?" "Miss, this subordinate is incompetent. This subordinate only found out that he is a rogue cultivator. The place where he first appeared was the glacier forest near the Lu tribe." The burly man said respectfully, "Glacier forest." The father and daughter were shocked. "I have heard of the glacier forest's fierce reputation. It is said that there are a large number of War Emperor realm beasts there. It is a forbidden area in this area. Why would they appear there?" Meng Tong frowned. This subordinate is also very puzzled. The burly man shook his head. Meng Tong turned to look at the Meng family lord and said, "Father, I don't dare to do anything. I want that wolf." "Don't worry, it won't be able to escape," the Meng family lord said with a smile, his face full of doting. Then he looked at the burly man and ordered, "Commander, go and capture them immediately." The burly man said, "I heard that the captain of the first team has already gone to look for them. He will probably bring them here soon." "No, this kid dares to go to the glacier forest. His strength is definitely not simple. It is better for you to go there personally," the Meng family lord said. Meng Tong added, "If he is alive, I want to see him. If he is dead, I want to see his corpse." This subordinate understands. The burly man bowed and replied, then turned and left. But at this moment, a guard hurriedly ran in and said, "Patriarch, Miss Commander, that Qin Feiyong is here. He said that he wants to see the patriarch." The 3 of them suddenly stood up. Meng Tong said, "Where is he?" The guard said, "Just outside the gate." Meng Tong was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Bring him in immediately." "Yes." The guard stood up, turned around, and ran out. "Wait." The burly man stopped him and asked, "Did you see the captain of the first team?" "No." The guard shook his head. "No." The burly man frowned and waved his hand. "Go." Chapter 363. Not long after, Qin Feiyong followed behind the guard and walked into the meeting hall. The burly man and Meng family lord immediately looked at him with a hint of curiosity in their eyes. Meng Tong's gaze fell directly on Wolf King, who was on Qin Feiyong's shoulder. "You can leave." The burly man's eyes flashed, and he waved his hand at the guard. The guard bowed and left. The burly man said, Qin Feiyang, tell this commander, where is the captain of the first team now? Dead, Qin Feiyang said. What? The burly man's body trembled. Meng Tong and Meng family lord also frowned. The burly man asked, How did he die? Wolf King said, Do you still need to ask? Of course we killed him. Meng family lord was furious and shouted, Are you not afraid of death? How dare you kill people of my Meng family? Qin Feiyang said indifferently, There is no one in this world who is not afraid of death, but who told them to die. You are really arrogant. Meng family lord slammed the table in front of him, and the table shattered. Family lord, something bad has happened. At this moment, another guard ran in anxiously, but when he saw Qin Feiyang here, he couldn't help but be stunned. Meng family lord frowned. What's the matter? This subordinate just received the news. The captain of the first team, manager Meng of the restaurant, 10 guards, and more than a dozen waiters were all killed. The guard said, Manager Meng is also dead? Meng family lord was stunned and said angrily, Tell me who did it? The guard pointed at Qin Feiyang and said, It's them. Damn it. The Meng family lord was furious. Meng Tong's face was also covered in frost. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said coldly, You are provoking me. Wolf King said disdainfully, Little Miss Meng, you think too highly of yourself. Why can't we touch a small Meng family? The tiny Meng family? Meng Tong immediately jumped up as if his tail had been stepped on. He said sternly, Father, quickly kill them. Qin Feiyang looked at her with disgust and said, Meng family lord, I didn't come to White Fox City to make enemies with your Meng family. The Meng family lord said in a deep voice, Is there any point in saying this now? It is indeed meaningless. Then I'll be straightforward. Give me the coordinates of Purple Sun Tribe or Sky Thunder City, and I will leave White Fox City immediately. Qin Feiyang said. The three of them looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. The burly man asked, Why do you want the coordinates of Purple Sun Tribe and Sky Thunder Pool? Qin Feiyang said, That has nothing to do with you. Haha, you are now in the city, Lord's mansion. Whether you can come out alive or not depends on our wishes. So you'd better be honest and answer whatever I ask you. The burly man let out a hearty laugh as he shouted in a sinister voice. Then I'm sorry. I am afraid of everything, but I am not afraid of threats. But I don't know if you are afraid or not. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. What do you mean? The three of them frowned. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Assassinating the alchemists in this area will cause public outrage. How do you know? Meng Tong was surprised. The burly man's face changed. He immediately looked at Meng Tong and shouted, Young miss, don't talk nonsense. After being scolded by the burly man, Meng Tong suddenly came to her senses and cursed in her heart. Why was she so stupid? By asking this question, wasn't it equivalent to admitting that there was such a thing in disguise? Don't hide it. I can't be bothered with your despicable business. As long as you give me the coordinates, I will pretend that I have never been to White Fox City. Qin Feiyang said, Do we look like idiots to you? I thought you were a talent and wanted to spare your life to serve the Meng family. But now it seems that I have no choice but to silence you. Commander, do it. Meng family lord shouted. Boom! The burly man's body trembled and his aura burst out. He was a 9-star battle monarch. Go to hell, you little bastard. With a roar, his large fan-like hand slapped towards Qin Feiyang's head with an astonishing astral wind. You will pay for this. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. He activated the return formula and slapped with his palm without dodging. Bang! The two palms collided, and both of them retreated at the same time. How is this possible? Meng family lord and Meng Tong were stunned. The guard commander was a 9-star battle monarch. Qin Feiyang's aura was only that of a 4-star battle monarch. How could he block the guard commander's full-strength palm strike? Furthermore, the two of them were evenly matched. The reason for that was because both of their arms were lacerated. The guard commander was the most shocked. He could clearly feel that the force of his palm strike was completely reflected back. In other words, the other party did not use any strength at all. He was just borrowing the force of his attack. What kind of battle technique was that? Was there such a battle technique in the world? I'd like to try again. He stepped on the ground, stopped his body, and rushed toward Qin Feiyang again. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed fiercely, and he also rushed forward. The two of them raised their other hand at the same time and slapped each other. The situation from before reappeared. Sure enough, he's borrowing the force of his attack. The burly man's heart trembled. But then, a sneer appeared on his face as he stared at Qin Feiyang and said, "My Meng family has alchemists. We have as many healing pills as we want. Do you have any?" He took out a healing pill and waved it in front of Qin Feiyang as if he was showing off. Then he threw it into his mouth. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Wolf King and the pangolin also looked at each other. How could he show off an ordinary healing pill in front of a top-grade alchemist? Was this person's head kicked by a donkey? What a joke! However, Qin Feiyang did not say anything. He took out a healing pill with 2 veins and threw it into his mouth at lightning speed. It was so fast that even the Meng family lord could not see it. The injuries on both of his arms began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Meng family lord and the other two were still wondering what kind of pill Qin Feiyang had taken. But when they saw the situation, they turned pale with fright. What kind of pill did he take? How could his recovery speed be so fast? Clang! Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and Chang Shui appeared out of thin air. He grabbed it in his hand and pounced on the commander of the guards. This was the advantage of high-quality healing pills. The speed of recovery was faster than the commander of the guards. He could seize the opportunity and quickly counterattack before the commander of the guards could make a move. Seeing this, the commander of the guards instinctively took a step back with a trace of panic in his eyes. But then his face twisted. He was a 9-star battle king. How could he be afraid of a 4-star battle king? His pride did not allow him to retreat, let alone be afraid. "Family lord, don't make a move. Kill!" Without turning his head, he growled at the Meng family's patriarch, and a white beast shadow appeared behind him. That was a snow mountain ape. It had 2 heads and 4 bell-sized eyes that flickered with a terrifying, ferocious light. As soon as the battle soul appeared, it beat its chest and stomped its feet. With an extremely terrifying, ferocious aura, it pounced on Qin Feiyang. However, Qin Feiyang turned a blind eye to it. "How dare you activate your battle soul in front of me? Are you looking for trouble?" Wolf King chuckled. His whole body emitted a golden light, and a golden beast shadow appeared out of thin air. Boom! With a loud bang, the entire conference hall collapsed. The battle soul of the commander of the guards was directly swallowed by the golden beast shadow. At the same time, Qin Feiyang's murderous aura was monstrous. He stabbed the lower abdomen of the commander of the guards. Then, he disappeared without a trace in an instant. The conference hall was built with a kind of black stone bricks. For a moment, countless gravel flew in all directions, smashing deep pits on the ground, and a loud rumbling sound was heard. Dust filled the air and nothing could be seen. And in the loud noise, there was a painful scream that echoed endlessly. That was the scream of the commander of the guards. Hearing the scream, the Meng family lord's expression changed abruptly. He protected Meng Tong by his side and continuously attacked, shattering the falling stone bricks one after another. A moment later, he finally found the commander of the guards. However, at this moment, the commander of the guards had already been smashed beyond recognition by the falling stone bricks. Even his body was about to turn into a pile of mud. His breathing and heartbeat had also stopped. He had already died. Damn bastard! The Meng family lord was furious. The aura of the war emperor erupted. The battle chi was like a tide, sweeping in all directions. The collapsed hall was instantly reduced to ashes. Following closely, with a wave of his hand, a gust of wind rose, and the billowing dust and smoke surged into the sky. This place became clear all of a sudden. However, there was no trace of Qin Feiyang. The Meng family lord scanned his surroundings, but didn't even see a ghost. He immediately roared, "Little bastard, get out here!" What's going on? The great council hall actually collapsed. Could it be that it's Qin Feiyang's masterpiece again? When the guards heard the news, they ran over from all directions, their faces full of shock and bewilderment. Meng Tong looked at the guards and asked, "Have you seen Qin Feiyang?" No. Everyone shook their heads. Bastard! How did he disappear in the blink of an eye? The father and daughter's faces were as gloomy as water. Not only did he kill the commander of the guards, but he also tore down the great council hall. To the Meng family, this was simply a great humiliation. "I'll give you half an hour to find them. Otherwise, all of you will die." The Meng family lord shouted, his killing intent soaring into the sky. "Yes, let's go." The guards' bodies and minds trembled as they immediately began to search. Inside the castle, the pangolin asked, "Qin Feiyang, what do we do now?" The Meng family was completely enraged. There was no way they could get the coordinates. "What are you afraid of? Let's find a chance to go out and kill all the Meng family's minions." Wolf King's eyes flashed with a fierce light. "I'm not afraid. I'm worried that I won't be able to get the coordinates." "Brother Wolf, you have to know that Qin Feiyang only has 5 years. If we don't return in 5 years, the black fury poison will act up. At that time, even the gods won't be able to save him," the pangolin said. The pangolin is right. Although 5 years is a long time, if we don't have the coordinates, we won't be able to reach the Purple Sun Tribe or Sky Thunder City, let alone find the flame of heavenly thunder. Fatso, who was organizing the Qianquan bag, interrupted. Chapter 364. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and smiled. "Actually, you don't have to worry about me." "Boss, don't be too relaxed. If you really kick the bucket, who will Fat Lord follow in the future?" Fat Lord still wants to be the imperial general of the great Qin Empire. Fatso said. "Imperial general?" The pangolin widened its eyes and said in surprise, "Qin Feiyang, are you from the imperial capital?" Wolf King stared at it unkindly and said, "Little follower, if you want to live, you have to understand one thing. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." "That's right. The more you know, the worse it will be for you." Fatso also realized that he had let it slip. The pangolin shrunk its neck, but its eyes were filled with thoughts. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at Fatso and said unhappily, "If I don't let you be the imperial general, will you want me to die?" "What are you talking about? We are brothers. If anyone wants to kill you, they will have to step over Fat Lord's corpse first." The fatty patted his chest, looking as if he was ready to risk his life, and made a solemn vow. "That's enough." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Let's go into seclusion for a while." "What? You're still going into seclusion?" Fatso, Wolf King, and the pangolin all looked at him in disbelief. This guy, is he really not worried at all? Even Lu Hong opened her eyes. There was a trace of worry in her bright eyes. "Even if we can't get the coordinates here, we can still go to other areas. The Forgotten Land is so big. I don't believe that only the Meng family knows the coordinates of the Purple Sun Tribe and Sky Thunder City." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Seeing that Fatso and the others still wanted to say something, he waved his hand and said, "Cut the crap! Go into seclusion." Then he walked to the iron box and began to draw the fourth stroke of the battle formula. Although he had won the last few battles, he still felt that it was very strenuous. This was especially true when he fought with the 9-star battle monarch. Every time he fought, both sides would suffer great losses. Therefore, he had to quickly break through another small realm. When he broke through to the 5-star Battle King realm, he would be able to crush a 9-star Battle King with the power of the return character art. He might even be able to resist a 1-star Combat Emperor. Seeing this, Wolf King and Fatso didn't say anything else. Wolf King took out a supreme grade battle chi pill and began to refine it. Fatso also continued to check the Cosmos bags. The pangolin looked on enviously. It eagerly approached Fatso. Before it could speak, Fatso said, "Can't you see that Fat Lord is very busy? Go away." The pangolin's body stiffened and it resentfully retreated. It rolled its eyes and moved closer to Wolf King. "Brother Wolf, look. No matter what, this king is still your little brother. If there are benefits, shouldn't you think of this king? You must have a lot of battle chi pills. Can you give this king some?" It licked its face and smiled obsequiously. Wolf King glanced at it and said, "Look at yourself. Do you look like a little brother?" The pangolin nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, yes, yes. This king was wrong in the past. This king will definitely listen to you in the future." "Who would believe you?" Wolf King snorted coldly. The pangolin vowed, "Brother Wolf, you have to believe this king. This king has always been a man of his word. I will never go back on my words." TSK. Wolf King's eyes were filled with disdain. However, he also took out a pile of battle chi pills from the Cosmos bag around his neck. "Take it. After all, you're following us now. I don't want you to drag us down," Wolf King said. "Thank you, Brother Wolf. Brother Wolf, don't worry. I will work hard to cultivate." The pangolin looked at the battle chi pills with shining eyes. Outside, the entire White Fox City was in chaos. All the guards of the city lord's mansion were dispatched to search for Qin Feiyang throughout the city. The city gates and city walls were also completely sealed off. They could only enter, not leave. But as the days passed, not even a shadow was seen, let alone a person. Did he disappear into thin air? It was impossible. He must be hiding somewhere. Later, the Meng family lord even issued a bounty. Anyone who reported would be rewarded with 1,000,000 gold coins. If they could capture him alive and bring him to the city lord's mansion, not only would they be rewarded with 10,000,000 gold coins, but they would also be rewarded with a red fire glass pill. As soon as the bounty was issued, everyone in the city went crazy. They went from house to look for Qin Feiyang. A month later, a burly man wearing a black tiger pelt rushed back from outside the city, looking travel-worn. He immediately found the Meng family lord. In a hall, the Meng family lord looked at the burly man and asked, "How is it? Have you found out?" "Yes, I've asked the people of the He family tribe. They said that Qin Feiyang has an ability that allows him to disappear and reappear suddenly. It's because of this ability that the He family tribe can only watch him do evil. But it's said that he can't move when he disappears." The burly man said, "What do you mean?" The Meng family lord frowned. The burly man said, "It means that he has been staying at the place where he disappeared." The Meng family lord was surprised. He stayed at the place where he disappeared, but no one could see or sense his aura. How could there be such a bizarre thing in the world? Family lord, no matter where he is hiding, at least we know that he is still in the great council hall. The burly man said with a cold light in his eyes, "That's right. As long as he is still in the great council hall, he can't escape. Take your men and surround the great council hall immediately. Don't let a fly go. As long as you can capture them, you will be the commander of the guards in the future." The Meng family lord said, "Thank you, family lord. This subordinate will definitely capture them and live up to family lord's high expectations." The burly man was overjoyed. He bowed and thanked Meng family lord before turning around and leaving quickly. The collapsed great council hall had been rebuilt. The burly man ran over with a group of guards. There were 50 to 60 of them. The burly man glanced at the great council hall, waved his hand, and shouted, "Quickly surround the great council hall. Don't let them escape." Yes, the group of guards responded. Some people surrounded the great council hall. Some people entered the great council hall. In short, there were people both inside and outside. A short guard came up to the burly man and said with a flattering smile, "Brother Meng Cheng, congratulations. Please take care of me in the future." Meng Cheng shook his head and said, "It's too early to congratulate me. Let's capture Qin Feiyang first." With Brother Meng Cheng personally taking action, won't it be a piece of cake? Isn't that right, everyone? The short guard shouted. Yes. The other guards responded loudly with fawning expressions on their faces. All right. Be serious. When I really become the commander, I definitely won't forget my brothers. Meng Cheng chuckled. In his opinion, the position of the commander was already set in stone. There was no way he could run away from it. But at this moment, painful screams suddenly sounded in the great council hall. What happened? Let's go in and take a look. Meng Cheng's expression changed as he rushed into the great council hall. The guards also followed. However, as soon as they reached the door of the great council hall, they stopped in unison and looked inside in horror. They saw a wolf more than 7 meters tall, with bulging muscles all over its body. It was like a killing machine as it crazily slaughtered the guards in the great council hall. Its snow-white fur had already been dyed blood red. It was Wolf King. As early as yesterday, it had already broken through to the 5-star Battle King realm. It was bored when it heard the commotion outside and became excited. It asked Qin Feiyang to send it out of the castle. With the cultivation of a 5-star Battle King and the superior battle art, Berserker's Fury, it now had the combat power of an 8-star Battle King. The strongest of these guards was only a 5-star Battle King. Most of them were 3-star and 4-star Battle Kings. Although some of them had battle arts, they were basically inferior battle arts. How could they be a match for Wolf King? Killing them was as easy as cutting vegetables. What a terrifying strength! The guards outside the great council hall revealed a look of horror in their eyes. There are so many of us. What are we afraid of? Hurry up and inform the patriarch. The rest of you, follow me in and stall it. As long as we catch it, Qin Feiyang will definitely not be able to escape. Meng Cheng shouted. The short guard immediately turned and ran away. Follow me. Meng Cheng roared and took the lead to rush into the great council hall. Battle aura surged. He used his battle art and charged toward Wolf King. He was a 7-star Battle King. With his inferior battle art, his strength was comparable to Wolf King's. However, his combat instincts were not as good as Wolf King's. Moreover, in the same realm, beasts were stronger than humans. This was because the bodies of beasts were naturally strong and powerful. However, this could not be generalized. Some people's physical bodies were no worse than those of ferocious beasts after being tempered. However, this was a minority. Meng Cheng was obviously not this kind of person. After a few rounds, he was hit by Wolf King's claws on his lower body. The intense pain caused by his balls being crushed almost made him faint. The Wolf King seized the opportunity and snapped his throat in one bite. Seeing this, the other guards no longer had the courage to continue fighting. They began to flee. Wolf King seemed to be possessed by the god of death. He killed one person with every step he took. Blood was everywhere as he killed his way out of the main hall. In less than 10 breaths, all the guards fell to the ground and their blood flowed like a river. Ow! After killing, it glanced at the corpses on the ground and held at the sky. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang appeared out of thin air and came to the main hall. He brought Wolf King to the castle. The man and the wolf disappeared in less than 3 breaths. The Meng family's patriarch arrived with the short guard and landed outside the main hall. Looking at the bloody scene around him, the short guard was paralyzed on the spot. His face was pale. A pool of water flowed out from under his crotch. The smell of urine permeated the air. Crack! Meng family lord's eyes were red. His 10 fingers were tightly clenched together. These were all the elite disciples of the Meng family. However, in just a short while, all of them had died. Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Little beast, if you have the guts, come out and fight me fair and square. He roared at the sky, his anger soaring to the sky. However, no one responded to him at all. Call someone over immediately and bury the bodies. From now on, I will personally guard this place and wait for them to come out. After an unknown amount of time, the Meng family's patriarch took a deep breath and instructed the short guard. Then he strode into the conference hall. However, he did not know that Qin Feiyang had already left the main hall. Chapter 365. Inside the castle. With the Meng family lord overseeing the meeting hall, the restless Wolf King could only continue to cultivate. Qin Feiyang's black demon poison also acted up again. The sudden sharp pain from his heart almost made him faint. Fortunately, he calculated the time and was prepared, so he took the transparent liquid in time. 5 days later, boom! His arm trembled, and at the same time his aura erupted. His cultivation realm was like a volcanic eruption, climbing to the 5-star Battle King. Wolf King opened his eyes and asked, "Are you done copying?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. The 4th stroke of the battle formula was like a star, shining with a dazzling light. Wolf King urged, "Then hurry up and refine the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill." As long as they took the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill, their cultivation would soar. No, the level of the Nether Devil Flame is not high enough to refine a Juku Yellow Dragon Pill with 2 patterns. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The Juku Yellow Dragon Pill was the same as the Scarlet Fire colored glass pill. Everyone could only take it once in their life. A Juku Yellow Dragon Pill with 1 pattern could only break through a small realm. So, if they took the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill now, it would be a waste of this opportunity. Wolf King said, "Then when do we have to return to the Holy Temple?" "There's no need to wait until then." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a light flashed across his eyes. "No need?" Wolf King was stunned and asked in surprise, "What do you mean?" Boom! At this moment, Fatso also broke through to the 3-star Battle King. He opened his eyes and chuckled. "Brother Wolf, why are you so stupid? Think about it carefully. Why did we come to the Forgotten Land this time?" Wolf King said angrily, "Nonsense, of course it's for the Heavenly Thunder Flame." As soon as he finished speaking, Wolf King suddenly came to a realization and said with a sinister smile, "Brother understands, you want to use the Heavenly Thunder Flame to refine the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill." "Yes, the Sacred Hall's alchemy fire is only at the 3rd grade, but Boss can refine a pill with 2 alchemy veins. The Heavenly Thunder Flame is a 6th grade pill fire. Who knows, it might be able to refine 3, 4, or even 5 pill veins. The power of the 9 Songs Yellow Dragon Pill will naturally increase exponentially, so there's no need to be in such a hurry." Fatso said, "That's right." Wolf King nodded repeatedly. A 9-melody Yellow Dragon Pill with 2 pill veins could increase one's cultivation by 2 minor realms, not to mention 3, 4, or 5. He couldn't help but feel excited just thinking about it. The pangolin looked at them in confusion and asked, "Can you explain to this king what the 9 Tunes Yellow Dragon Pill is?" Wolf King smiled mysteriously and said, "It's a miraculous pill that will leave you dumbfounded. Can't you make it clear?" The pangolin was helpless. Fatso said disdainfully, "You're not one of us. Why should we tell you? Hey, you can't say that. Yes, this king admits that there's still a gap between us. But now, we're at least grasshoppers on the same rope. Can't we trust each other more? The pangolin said unhappily. Only a ghost would believe you. Fatso and Wolf King glanced at it disdainfully at the same time. It wasn't so easy to integrate into this small team. If the pangolin didn't show sincerity, it would probably be impossible for a lifetime. Not to mention getting benefits from Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the pangolin and asked, Fatso, have you sorted out those Chenquan bags? Yes. Fatso nodded. Wolf King said, What treasures are there? There's no treasure, just a lot of medicinal herbs and gold coins. Let's not talk about the other medicinal herbs. There are medicinal herbs for the potential pill, 9 Tunes yellow dragon pill, and red fire colored glass pill. There's a total of more than 1 billion gold coins. There's also a lot of weapons and pills, but their value isn't high. Fatso said. Wolf King said no battle arts? No. Fatso shook his head. Wolf King's eyes suddenly had a trace of disappointment. Qin Feiyang said, There's still a long way to go. We can slowly think of a way to create battle arts in the future. The most important thing now is to work hard to improve our own strength. Fatso said, Boss, since your talent is so good, why don't you create a few battle arts yourself? Create? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a wry smile, Creating battle arts requires the right time, place, and people. None of them can be missing. I've heard that some people can't create a battle art even after spending their whole life painstakingly. But some people suddenly comprehend a battle art. In short, creating battle arts can't be forced. It all depends on luck. Qin Feiyang said. Fatso and Wolf King looked at each other. They didn't expect that creating battle arts would be so difficult. Okay, you guys continue to cultivate. I'll go out and meet the Meng family head. Qin Feiyang's mind stirred, and he disappeared without a trace. At the same time, outside the great council hall. Who is it? Qin Feiyang's appearance immediately alarmed the guards in front of the hall. It's you, family head. Qin Feiyang has appeared. When they saw that it was Qin Feiyang, the few guards' faces changed and shouted loudly. Whoosh! The next moment, the Meng family's patriarch rushed out of the hall. You're finally willing to come out. Give me your life. His eyes were filled with bone-piercing, killing intent. Wait! Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand and shouted. However, Meng family lord turned a deaf ear to him. His battle chi surged, and he angrily punched towards Qin Feiyang. Then I'll try to see if the current return technique can compete with the War Emperor. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a radiant light. He raised his big hand, and a golden light burst out from his palm. In an instant, the fist and the palm met. Boom! Immediately, a terrifying airwave, with the two as the center, rolled out in all directions. The surrounding guards were all blown away and blood spurted out of their mouths. At the same time, accompanied by a series of loud noises, the land within a radius of hundreds of meters was instantly razed to the ground. The great council hall also collapsed again. Puff! Qin Feiyang's face turned pale and blood kept spurting out of his mouth. He flew out like a meteorite. His arm was shattered on the spot. On the other hand, Meng family lord, although he was also pushed back by the return technique, the injury on his arm was not very serious. It was just that his skin and flesh were cracked. Sure enough, no matter how heaven-defying the return technique was, in the face of overwhelming combat power, it couldn't defeat the strong. But even so, the power of the return technique made Qin Feiyang very satisfied, because there was a huge gap between a combat emperor and a combat king. This gap was an insurmountable gap. It was very difficult to break through, but from the current situation, Although he couldn't win, he wouldn't be instantly killed when facing a one-star combat emperor in the future. In the blink of an eye, accompanied by a bang, Qin Feiyang was like a meteorite, smashing into the ground dozens of meters away, creating a deep pit on the ground. His body seemed to be falling apart. Swish! Meng family lord swooped down and landed on top of the deep pit. He looked down at Qin Feiyang and said, "If you have any last words, say it quickly." Last words? Qin Feiyang climbed up in a sorry state and kept vomiting blood. He raised his head and looked up. There was still no fear in his eyes. He said indifferently, "You should know very well that you can't kill me." Meng family lord's face darkened. That's right. He really didn't have the slightest confidence. But if he didn't kill this person, the resentment in his heart would not disappear. I'll say it again. Give me the coordinates, and I'll leave immediately. Otherwise, I'll fight to the death with the Meng family. Now you know what I'm capable of. If I really do that, you'll be the ones to suffer in the end. Qin Feiyang said, "How dare you threaten me?" Meng family lord's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He suddenly raised his big hand. Battle chi surged, and a huge golden hand appeared out of nowhere. Die! Following his roar, the big golden hand carried an astonishing ferocious aura and slapped toward Qin Feiyang. You asked for it. Don't blame me for being merciless. Qin Feiyang was also angry and disappeared without a trace. Boom! The big golden hand fell, and the ground shook violently. Cracks spread in all directions. Damn it! The head of the Meng family was seething with anger. Where is this little bastard hiding? Even a combat king couldn't do anything to him. If this continued, the Meng family would become a joke sooner or later. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyang consumed a regeneration pill. Then, his shattered technique started to slowly regenerate. Little Qin Zi, don't talk nonsense with him. Just kill them all. Wolf King's eyes flashed with a ferocious light. Let me think about it first. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. A moment later, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. The first step is to find out the location of the trading pavilion's warehouse. The second step is to loot the warehouse. Don't leave a single hair behind. The third step is to assassinate the Meng family and leave White Fox City directly after that. But remember, don't kill the innocent. Qin Feiyang said, Good. I've been waiting for you to say that. Wolf King shouted excitedly. Fatso was also excited. As for the pangolin, it was also eager to give it a try. Wolf King suddenly said, "The warehouse is not a place where ordinary people can enter. Do you have any good ideas?" "Yes, let's find Meng Tong." Qin Feiyang said. "Good idea." Wolf King's eyes lit up. Meng Tong is the pearl of the Meng family. As long as she leads the way, we can definitely sneak in. Don't let her lead the way. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Wolf King was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Fatso said, "Boss, you mean to let someone replace Meng Tong." Wolf King said angrily, "Can't you explain it all at once?" Think about it. If Meng Tong leads the way, even if she is held hostage by us, she will definitely find a way to escape or obstruct us. At that time, if we are not careful, we will be doomed eternally. But if we imprison Meng Tong and make someone look like Meng Tong, won't we be able to deceive everyone? Fatso spoke, frankly with assurance. His thoughts were almost the same as Qin Feiyang's. The pangolin was stunned and said with a flattering smile, "Fat bro, awesome!" "Of course." Fatso smiled proudly. Wolf King said, "Capturing Meng Tong is not difficult, but who will replace her? Don't we have a ready-made person here?" Fatso chuckled and turned to look at Lu Hong. Lu Hong opened her eyes and said helplessly, "Damn Fatso, you are pushing me into the fire pit!" Although she had been cultivating, she had heard the conversation between Qin Feiyang and the others. Fatso said with a smile, "If you don't sacrifice the child, you won't get the wolf." Chapter 366. Fatso heard this. His fat face twitched, and he lamented, "A woman's heart is indeed the most vicious." "Then, don't provoke her in the future," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. He looked at Lu Hong and said, "How's your strength recovering?" Lu Hong said, "2-star martial grandmaster." "So fast?" Qin Feiyong was surprised, but after thinking about it, he understood. Not only did she open the 3rd level of the door of potential, but she also had a qi-gathering pill with 2 patterns. In addition, her foundation was still there. Wolf King said, "If I remember correctly, Meng Tong is only a 1-star martial grandmaster." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and said, "It's just a small difference. It doesn't matter." Wolf King asked, "Then how do we get out now?" Old Dog Meng had been guarding outside. Once they went out, they would definitely be attacked by him. "Wait patiently. There will always be a chance." Qin Feiyong smiled, walked to the iron box, and continued to copy the 5th stroke. Outside, Meng family lord sat cross-legged beside the deep pit. He was determined to wait until the end. Even the matters in the city were handled here. Time passed day by day. Another month passed. Qin Feiyong was about to copy the 5th stroke of the battle formula. However, the head of the Meng family was still waiting outside. But on the 2nd day, the short guard hurriedly ran to Meng family lord, bowed, and said, "Family lord, the leaders of the 3 major tribes want to see you." "What?" Meng family lord suddenly stood up and said in surprise, "Why are they here?" The short guard shook his head and said, "I don't know. They didn't come earlier or later. Why did they come at this time? What do they want to do?" Meng family lord was a little angry. Could it be that Qin Feiyong had already leaked the news of them assassinating the alchemist? Something's not right. Qin Feiyong had been trapped here all this time and had no chance to leak any information. The short guard asked, "Master, are you going to meet him or not?" "Isn't that obvious? The 3 great leaders are here. How can I not see them? But if I leave, Qin Feiyong might take the opportunity to slip away. With your strength, you can't stop them." The Meng family lord was quite annoyed. The short guard pondered for a while and said, "Why don't we just let the old family head come out of seclusion?" The old family head was Meng family lord's father and Meng Tong's grandfather. He was the only alchemist in this area. The Meng family lord shook his head and said, "No, father is at the critical moment of breaking through to the 4-star combat emperor realm. We cannot disturb him." The short guard asked, "Then what should we do?" The Meng family lord thought for a while and said, "Call them over." "Yes." The short guard responded, turned around and left quickly. After a while, he led the 2 men and the woman to the Meng family's patriarch. One of the 2 men was a black-haired old man. He was emaciated and wore a large black robe made of snakeskin. Deep in his sunken eye sockets, his dark eyes shone with a gloomy and cold luster. The other man was a big man more than 8 feet tall. In the cold weather, his upper body was bare. His skin was dark. His muscles were bulging, filled with an explosive power. The woman was also quite old. Her back was hunched, and her old hand was holding a pitch-black walking stick with a dragon head. The aura of the 3 men was unfathomable. The Meng family lord went up to them and said with a smile, "Welcome, welcome. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you." "Brother Meng, you're too polite. We are the ones who should be apologizing for our intrusion," Li Chia said. "We only hope that Brother Meng won't chase us away." The 3 of them laughed. "Don't say that. It's my honor to have the 3 of you here. Come, let's talk in the hall." The Meng family lord stepped aside and made a gesture of invitation. The great council hall had been rebuilt long ago. However, this was the 2nd time it had been rebuilt. Every time he saw the great council hall, the anger in the Meng family lord's heart burned stronger. The three leaders smiled and looked at the deep pit next to them. A hint of suspicion flashed in their eyes. Then they walked into the great council hall. The Meng family lord turned around and looked at the short guard. He ordered, "You stay here and watch. Call me as soon as they come out." "Yes." The short guard bowed and replied. The Meng family lord glanced at the deep pit, then turned around and walked into the great council hall. The short guard also stared at the deep pit. A month passed. A thick layer of snow had accumulated in the deep pit. The bottom of the pit was frozen. The castle was buried under the ice. The three leaders, Qin Feiyang had stopped copying. He stood beside the iron box and fell into deep thought. "Boss," from the Meng family lord's tone, "the three leaders should be very strong. The tribe they belong to must be a big tribe in this area. Should we take this opportunity to tell them about the Meng family's assassination of the alchemist?" Fatso said. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm also thinking about this, but I don't think it's feasible." "Why?" Fatso was puzzled. "First, we don't know where we came from. The three leaders might not believe us. Second, even if they believe us, they won't blame the Meng family now. Because in this area, only the old leader of the Meng family is an alchemist. If this person dies, then no one will be able to refine pills. This is a situation that no one wants to see. Moreover, you heard it yourself. The old leader of the Meng family is about to break through to the 4-star combat emperor realm. If the three leaders aren't confident, they won't turn against the Meng family." Qin Feiyang expressed his worries. "That's true." Fatso nodded. He couldn't help but furrow his brows. "Let's find Meng Tong first. Let's talk about other things after we loot the warehouse. Fatso, open your wings and go out to help." Qin Feiyang said. "Why, Fat Lord? It's too dangerous. Fat Lord won't go." Fatso shook his head. His face began to turn pale. "Cut the crap." Qin Feiyang glared at him and grabbed Fatso's arm. In a flash, they appeared at the bottom of the deep pit. The layer of ice that buried the castle also shattered with a cracking sound. Seeing this, the short guard was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Home!" But before he could shout, Qin Feiyang took a big stride forward and rushed out of the deep pit. He smashed his head with a palm strike. "Ah!" Cries of agony could be heard. "It's Qin Feiyang!" "Family head, hurry up! Qin Feiyang is coming out." When the guards outside the hall saw this situation, they immediately started to make a ruckus. "Hurry up!" Qin Feiyang shouted to Fatso. "What a tough life!" Fatso wailed. He immediately opened his wings and flew out of the deep pit. He grabbed Qin Feiyang and rushed into the sky. At the same time, he asked, "Where are we going?" "Anywhere," Qin Feiyang said. The most important thing now was to get rid of the Meng family lord's pursuit. Whoosh! Fatso glanced down and swooped toward a garden in front of him. There were hundreds of flowers in the garden. There were green trees, pavilions, and a clear stream. In addition, there were many maids and guards. But before he swooped down, Qin Feiyang took Fatso to the ancient castle again. Because they were too fast, the maids and guards did not notice them. Although it was slow, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Meng family lord rushed out of the hall and glanced at the deep pit. When he saw the body of the short guard, his face immediately darkened. He turned his head and looked at the guards at the door. He shouted coldly, "Where are they?" However, at this moment, the guards were all dumbstruck. The three leaders also walked out of the hall. Their eyes were full of confusion. "I'm sorry. I have some private matters to attend to." Meng family lord smiled apologetically at the three leaders. He looked at the guards and shouted, "Answer me. Why are you still standing there?" The guards suddenly came back to their senses. They pointed to the sky and said in unison, "They flew up." "Flew?" Meng family lord was stunned. Then he burned with anger and said coldly, "How dare you trick me? How dare you? How could the warlord fly? Therefore, he thought that these guards were fooling him. Family lord, we're not lying. They really flew up. There's a fatso with Qin Feiyong. He has a pair of black wings on his back. The guards hurriedly knelt on the ground and said in horror, Wings? Meng family lord was stunned. How could there be wings on a human's back? Whoosh! He flew into the sky and stood above the meeting hall, looking in all directions. However, he did not even find a shadow. Damn it! He cursed and looked down at the three leaders. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. If these three people did not suddenly come to him, Qin Feiyong would not have been able to escape. If he did not know these three people very well, he would have suspected that they were here to help Qin Feiyong. Whoosh! He swooped down and landed in front of the hall. He shouted to the guards, They must still be in the city, Lord's mansion. Immediately send down the order to lock down the city, Lord's mansion, and strictly investigate. Yes, the guards responded respectfully and hurriedly left. The three leaders looked at each other. The old man in the snakeskin looked at Meng family lord and asked, Brother Meng, what is Qin Feiyong capable of that makes you so helpless? Qin Feiyong had long been a celebrity in White Fox City. Over the past 2 months, all the tribes within a radius of 100 miles had heard of his name. The three leaders' tribes were nearby, so they naturally knew of him. This time, they came to White Fox City to buy some pills. On the other hand, they wanted to meet this young man who had given the Meng family a headache. Unfortunately, they came out a step too late and did not see his face clearly. The three of you don't know. This little bastard has a mysterious treasure that can hide. Every time we find him, he hides. Otherwise, I would have crippled him long ago. How could I let him be so arrogant until now? Meng family lord said angrily. Mysterious treasure? A glint flashed across the eyes of the three leaders at the same time. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go in. It's not easy for the three of you to come to White Fox City. Don't let these small things spoil your mood. Meng family lord took a deep breath and said, Brother Meng is right. No matter how much an ant jumps, it will always be an ant. It will never be able to defeat an elephant. The burly man laughed. Hearing this, the Meng family's patriarch laughed. Indeed, how could this giant elephant of the Meng family be brought down by a few small ants? The four of them walked into the meeting hall while talking and laughing. Meanwhile, all the entrances of the city, Lord's mansion, were guarded by guards. Chapter 367. About half an hour passed. Qin Feiyong appeared out of thin air beside a small tree in the garden. Then he hid behind the small tree and observed the surroundings. This garden was right behind the great council hall. There were a few winding paths in the garden. Every 10 meters or so, there was a guard, standing guard. At the end of the path, there was a hall. It was more than 10 meters tall and had a total of 3 floors. At the door, there were more than 10 guards standing side by side on both sides. They looked straight ahead as if they were guarding something. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, and he quietly sneaked behind a guard. He reached out his big hand, covered the guard's mouth, and entered the castle. Where is this? As soon as he entered the castle, the guard was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyong pushed him away and said indifferently, If you don't want to die, tell me where Meng Tong lives. This voice, it's Qin Feiyong. The guard's body trembled, and he quickly turned around. When he saw Qin Feiyong and Wolf King, his face immediately turned pale. Suddenly, he roared, Someone, they're here! Ah! Qin Feiyong and the others were stunned. Was this person stupid? Didn't he know that he couldn't hear the commotion outside? That's right. He really didn't know. Fatso mocked, Don't waste your energy. Even if you shout until your throat is hoarse, no one will hear you. Come and save me. Answer me if you hear me. The guard didn't believe it and shouted crazily. In the end, when he shouted himself hoarse and saw that no one came to save him, he finally believed it. He was also desperate. Plop! He knelt on the ground and begged, "Lords, I'm just a small fry. If you need anything, go to the Patriarch. Don't make things difficult for me." Qin Feiyang said, "As long as you tell me where Meng Tong lives, I'll spare your life." "You want to harm Miss?" "No, I can't tell you. Otherwise, even if you don't kill me, the Patriarch will kill me." The guard shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, "Stubborn, white-eyed wolf, use your ultimate move." Wolf King laughed sinisterly. The guard's body and mind were trembling, and his face was filled with panic. The way Wolf King dealt with Steward Meng in that restaurant had long been known by everyone. Now, everyone in White Fox City knew that its so-called ultimate move, the so-called holy water, was a pool of urine. Seeing Wolf King walking towards him, the guard hurriedly said, "Wait, I'll talk, I'll tell you everything." Fatso shouted, "Then hurry up!" The guard said, "Miss lives in the main hall in the garden." Fatso said, "Exact location." The guard's gaze trembled as he said, "Third floor, the room on the far left." Qin Feiyang asked, "What about your old family head?" "I don't know about that. Only the Patriarch and the young miss know." "Lords, I've said everything that needs to be said. Can you let me go now?" The guard said, "All right, I'll let you go immediately." Fatso nodded. He walked in front of the guard, took out a dagger like lightning, and cut open the guard's throat. Let go? How was that possible? If he really let him go, this person would definitely go find the Meng family lord. Qin Feiyang took out a mirage form pill and changed into the guard's appearance, then put on the guard's beast skin. Following that, he then left the castle and walked towards the palace in a grand manner. "Meng San, why aren't you guarding over there? What are you doing here?" The dozen or so guards guarding the door all looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyang laughed. "The three great leaders are here. The Patriarch asked me to come over and call the young miss over." One of the guards was puzzled. "What are they here for?" "I don't know either." Qin Feiyang shrugged his shoulders. The guard said, "All right, you can go in. Keep your voice down. Don't disturb the madam." "There's still a madam?" Qin Feiyang was secretly startled. He calmly walked into the main hall and went straight to the third floor. A moment later, he stopped in front of a door on the far left and gently knocked on the door. "Who is it?" A crisp voice could be heard coming from the inside. It was Meng Tong's voice. Qin Feiyang said, "Young miss, the Patriarch wants you to go to the great council hall." Not long after, Meng Tong opened the door and walked out, asking, "Did father say why he wants me to go there?" "He didn't say." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then let's go." After Meng Tong closed the door, she walked towards the stairs. Qin Feiyang stepped behind her and covered her mouth with his hand. In the next moment, the two of them appeared in the castle. This sudden turn of events caused Meng Tong's expression to change. When Qin Feiyang let go of his hand, she immediately shouted, "You really have guts. You actually dare to coerce this young Mississippi," Fatso said. "Hurry up and put away your young miss airs for fat lord." Meng Tong raised her eyebrows and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the others. "Why are you guys here?" At that moment, her face changed color. Although Qin Feiyang had changed his appearance, and she did not recognize him, she recognized Wolf King and the pangolin at a glance. The Wolf King chuckled. "Welcome to hell." "Hell?" Meng Tong's face turned pale. She glanced around and could not help but sneer. This was obviously a secret room, and he called it hell? Did he think she was an idiot and easy to fool? However, when she noticed Meng San's corpse, her eyes suddenly trembled. She turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said sternly, "Who are you? Why are you pretending to be Meng San?" Fatso shook his head and said, "You are really stupid. Isn't it obvious who he is?" Meng Tong was surprised. Suddenly, She seemed to have thought of something. She hurriedly took 2 steps back and said in shock and anger, "You are Qin Feiyang." Qin Feiyang said, "Yes, I am Qin Feiyang." "Tell me, where is your grandfather in seclusion?" "What? You still want to kill my grandfather? What a joke! With your little strength, my grandfather can kill all of you together. Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better let me go immediately, or you will all die without a complete corpse." Meng Tong sneered. "You're already a prisoner, and you're still so arrogant?" Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. "If you don't hit women, I will." Lu Hong got up and slapped her. But at this time, Qin Feiyang grabbed her wrist and shook his head. "Don't waste time." Fatso said, "Yes, as time goes by, it will arouse suspicion." At the same time, Fatso stretched out his hand like lightning and hit the back of Meng Tong's head with his palm like a blade. "How dare you!" Meng Tong shouted angrily and fought back. But she was only a 1-star martial grandmaster. How could she be Fatso's opponent? She was directly beaten to the ground and fainted. "Quickly change your clothes." Qin Feiyang urged Lu Hong and turned around. Fatso also turned around. But Wolf King and the pangolin stared straight at Lu Hong and Meng Tong. Qin Feiyang's face darkened and he said angrily, "Be careful, I'll dig out your eyeballs." The 2 beasts smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly turned to look elsewhere. Rustle! Behind them, there was the sound of clothes being taken off. Fatty stealthily turned his head and glanced over. But before he saw it, Qin Feiyang gave him a knock on the head. He glanced at the restless Wolf King and the pangolin and shouted, "Behave yourself, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." "TSK, I won't look. Isn't it just a woman? What's the big deal?" The 2 of them muttered disdainfully, "Damn, you don't want to look, but Fat Lord wants to see. I've lived for so long, but I've never seen a woman's white bones." Fatso pursed his lips and looked unhappy. This boss was really a hindrance. "Enough." After a while, Lu Hong's voice sounded. Fatso turned around anxiously. He definitely couldn't see Lu Hong's body, but he could see Meng Tong's. However, when he looked at Meng Tong lying on the ground, his face suddenly fell. He saw that Meng Tong was wearing Lu Hong's clothes. The parts that should be covered were tightly covered. He looked up at Lu Hong, his eyes full of resentment. It seemed that he was blaming Lu Hong for putting clothes on Meng Tong. Seeing this, Lu Hong rolled her eyes and snorted. "I didn't expect you to be so perverted. It seems that I have to be more careful in the future." Yes, he is a pervert. We must guard against him. You can't be too perverted. Fat brother, don't you agree? Wolf King and the pangolin also took advantage of the situation. "Get lost." Fatso glared at them angrily. Funny, Qin Feiyang glanced at Fatso and the 2 beasts, turned to look at Lu Hong, looked up and down and nodded with satisfaction. At this moment, Lu Hong and Meng Tong were like a pair of twins. It was impossible to tell who was who. Qin Feiyang said, "Be alert." Lu Hong nodded. Then Qin Feiyang took Lu Hong and left the castle. Then Lu Hong walked in front. Qin Feiyang followed behind and quickly walked out of the hall. "Greetings, Mississippi," the guards at the door bowed to salute. Lu Hong nodded and walked to the council hall opposite. When they came to a place where there was no one, they turned around and walked toward the gate of the city lord's mansion. Along the way, the 2 of them encountered wave after wave of guards, but no one dared to block the way. They left the city lord's mansion unimpeded and entered the trading pavilion opposite. A woman came up to greet them. It was the young woman who had served Qin Feiyang before. Lu Hong said coldly and arrogantly, "Take me to the warehouse." "Warehouse." The young woman was stunned and didn't dare to ask more. She turned around and led the 2 of them upstairs. Without stopping, the 3 of them arrived at the 6th floor. "Greetings, Mississippi," a square-faced middle-aged man came up and bowed to Lu Hong. Lu Hong said, "Has anyone come to buy medicinal herbs recently?" "No." The middle-aged man shook his head and asked, "Miss, are you here for something?" The young woman said, "Miss wants to go to the warehouse." The middle-aged man was stunned and asked doubtfully, "I wonder why Miss is going to the warehouse?" Lu Hong shouted, "Do you need to ask what I want to do?" "I don't dare, I don't dare." The middle-aged man hurriedly shook his head and said to the young woman, "You can go down and do your work." "Yes." The young woman responded and went downstairs. "Please follow me, Mississippi." The middle-aged man smiled and called out, then turned and walked down the corridor on the right. "So the warehouse is on the 6th floor, together with the VIP lounge." Qin Feiyang muttered to himself, "The warehouse of the trading pavilion should have battle arts." Chapter 368. Following behind the middle-aged man, they walked to the end of the corridor and turned to the right. At that moment, Qin Feiyang saw an iron door in front of him. It was completely black and exuded a hard and heavy texture. In front of the iron door, there were 4 guards guarding it. Their auras were very strong. They were 4 9-star battle monarchs. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be secretly speechless. If he hadn't thought of this method, it would be harder than ascending to the sky to sneak into the warehouse. "Greetings, Mississippi." When they saw Lu Hong, the 4 of them cupped their hands and bowed. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Miss wants to go to the warehouse. Please open the door." He was the manager of the transaction pavilion, but the warehouse was not under his control. The 4 of them were stunned. One of the guards waved to the middle-aged man and Qin Feiyang. "You guys go down first." The middle-aged man nodded and didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned and strode away, but Qin Feiyang didn't move. He was worried about letting Lu Hong go in alone. Seeing that Qin Feiyang didn't move, the guard frowned and said, "Didn't you hear me tell you to go down?" Lu Hong frowned and scolded, "He's my personal guard. I didn't even say anything. What right do you have to order him?" "Personal guard?" The 4 of them looked at each other and couldn't help but have a trace of jealousy in their eyes. Being the personal guard of the young miss, they could usually get a lot of benefits. This person didn't look good and wasn't strong. How could he be so lucky to be chosen by the young miss? Lu Hong shouted, "Why aren't you opening the door? Do you want me to do it myself?" The guard hurriedly said, "I don't dare. But miss, you have to be gentle. Don't disturb the old master." What? Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted. Could it be that the old master was in seclusion in the warehouse? In that case, wasn't it equivalent to a sheep entering the tiger's den? Lu Hong was also shocked in her heart. If it was in the past, she would definitely be flustered when such a sudden change happened. But ever since she followed Qin Feiyang, she had experienced too many things. Her temperament had also unknowingly transformed. Not to mention strategizing, he was still able to remain calm in the face of danger. He panicked slightly, but he quickly calmed himself down. He said impatiently, "I know. I don't need you to remind me. This little master is really hard to serve." The 4 guards were filled with helplessness. One of them turned around, took out a token, and inserted it into the groove on the door. Immediately, the iron door opened silently. "Miss, please come in." Next, the 4 of them retreated to the side. Once an arrow is shot, it's hard to turn back. Even though they knew that the old master was in seclusion, the 2 of them could only brace themselves and walk in. Because if he didn't go in now, those 4 people would definitely be suspicious. After entering the warehouse, the guard closed the iron door. In the meantime, Qin Feiyang and Wang Chong also secretly became vigilant and scanned the storeroom. The warehouse was about 100 meters long. On the ground, pitch-black metal frames were neatly arranged. On the iron rack were all chincoin bags, and they were all categorized. The medicinal pills were all placed on a metal rack. The medicinal ingredients were also uniformly placed on the other 3 iron racks. Moreover, on each chincoin bag there was a note. It was clearly written what was inside the chincoin bag. Qin Feiyang and Wang Chong were stunned. The wealth here was simply beyond imagination. According to their preliminary estimate, there were at least hundreds of chincoin bags. This was a huge treasure trove. After Lu Hong came back to her senses, she whispered, "Do we do it now?" That weak voice could only be heard by the 2 of them. "No, the old master is here. If we do it, we'll be finished. We have to think of a way to lure him out first." Qin Feiyang whispered. Lu Hong frowned. "I don't see him." In 100 meters, the 2 of them could see everything clearly. Indeed, they didn't see any trace of other people. But those 4 guards definitely wouldn't lie. Qin Feiyang carefully scanned the 4 walls again. Suddenly, his eyes locked on the wall on the right. There was a trace of a door there. It might be a secret door. The 2 of them walked in and took a look. It was really a secret door. The 2 of them whispered to each other for a while. Lu Hong reached out and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" An old voice came from inside, slightly hoarse. Lu Hong replied obediently, "Grandpa, it's me." "So it's this old man's little granddaughter." Hoarse laughter sounded. Soon, the secret door opened, and a white-haired old man walked out. He glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Lu Hong and said with a smile, "What's the matter, Grandpa?" Lu Hong said, "Grandpa, Father asks you to go to the Great Council Hall." The old man frowned and asked doubtfully, "Did something happen?" "Yes." Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Old Patriarch, 2 months ago a person called Qin Feiyang came to our White Fox City. He repeatedly went against our Meng family and even killed many of our Meng family's people." "Qin Feiyang?" The old man lowered his head and pondered for a moment. He frowned and said, "I've never heard of this person." "We've never heard of him either. Originally, the Patriarch didn't want to disturb your seclusion, but that Qin Feiyang has the ability to come and go without a trace. For 2 whole months he has been in the City Lord's mansion, but no one can find him, not even the Patriarch. So we can only ask the old master to come out of seclusion." Qin Feiyang said indignantly, "How preposterous! How dare you cause trouble in my Meng family's territory?" The white-haired old man flew into a rage and said, "Let's go! Follow this old man to meet him." Lu Hong said, "Grandpa, I want to stay here and pick a few weapons for self-defense. It's good to stay here, so that when we fight, we won't accidentally hurt you." The white-haired old man smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang. He shouted, "Protect my good granddaughter well. If she loses a single strand of hair, this old man won't let you off easily." Qin Feiyang bowed and said, "I swear to protect Miss to the death." "Okay." The white-haired old man nodded and was about to leave, but he suddenly looked at Lu Hong. Qin Feiyang's eyelids twitched. Did he see through the clues? Lu Hong was also a little flustered, but she forced herself to be calm and asked in confusion, "What's wrong, Grandpa?" "Good granddaughter, when you came last time, weren't you only a 1-star martial arts grandmaster? How did you break through so quickly?" The white-haired old man said in surprise, "That's because your granddaughter is talented." "Why? Are you jealous?" Lu Hong smiled mischievously. "This old man is jealous of you? Little girl, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you know how powerful Grandpa is? But I can see that you're working hard to cultivate now. Continue to work hard. Don't let Grandpa down." The white-haired old man smiled. "Yes." Lu Hong nodded heavily. "So obedient?" The white-haired old man was stunned and said with a smile, "My good granddaughter has finally grown up and become sensible." After that, With a gratified smile, he turned around and landed in front of the iron door, pressing a black button beside it. The iron door suddenly opened. Then the white-haired old man strode out. After the iron door closed, Qin Feiyang immediately gave Lu Hong a thumbs up and said with a smile, "With your current temperament, you're already able to take charge alone." Lu Hong blushed and said, "If you weren't by my side, I would have been exposed." She was not flattering him. With her current relationship with Qin Feiyang, there was no need to flatter him. This was the truth. With Qin Feiyang by her side, she felt particularly safe. Qin Feiyang smiled, glanced at the Qinquan bag on the iron shelf, and said, "Hurry up and do it!" At the same time, with a wave of his hand, he pulled Fatso and Wolf King out. As for the pangolin, he didn't trust it that much. If he took 1 or 2 Qinquan bag for himself, wouldn't he lose a lot of money? Damn, so many. We're rich, we're rich. Looking at the Qinquan bag one after another, Wolf King and Fatso seemed to have eaten stimulants, jumping up and down, crazily plundering. Qin Feiyang turned around and walked into the secret door. Inside was a cultivation room that was about 20 to 30 meters wide. On the left, there was another door. He walked in and saw that it was an alchemy room. Alchemy and cultivation were both here. This was simply the old man's personal treasury. Pill furnace. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he walked to the pill furnace on the stone platform. However, upon closer inspection, a trace of disappointment crept onto his face. The pill furnace was completely black, without any treasure light. This meant that this was only a second-grade pill furnace. He then noticed that there was an iron box the size of an adult's palm next to the pill furnace. He opened the iron box, and a fist-sized flame immediately entered his line of sight. It was alchemy fire. This alchemy fire was no different from ordinary flames. It didn't seem to be of a high grade. However, every kind of alchemy fire was extremely rare. Therefore, he did not hesitate to take it into the castle. He also took away the pill furnace. Although the grade was the same as the bronze pill furnace, he could still keep it as a backup. Last time in the Sea of Despair, it was because he did not have a backup pill furnace that he wasted a few months of time. Otherwise, he would probably be a 7-star battle king by now, or even an 8-star battle king. "Boss, we've looted everything." At this time, Fatso, Wolf King, and Lu Hong happily walked into the alchemy room. Qin Feiyang asked, "Are there any battle arts?" Lu Hong said, "I haven't had the time to check yet." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "Lu Hong, take all the Qinquan bag to the castle first." Lu Hong was slightly stunned and asked, "Don't we need to hide our identities?" Wolf King waved his claws and said indifferently, "All the treasures are in our hands. What's the point of hiding our identities?" "Yes, there's no need to hide anymore." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he sent Lu Hong to the castle. Next, he took out a facial restoration pill, restored his original appearance, and threw away the beast skin coat on his body. "Let's go and loot the medicinal herbs on the second floor." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and strode out of the alchemy room. One had to know that there were many precious medicinal herbs on the second floor. For example, 9 Suns flower, fire ginseng, scarlet fire colored glass pill. These were all wealth. Haha! When Wolf King and Fatso heard this, they immediately chased after Qin Feiyang with a sinister smile. Walking to the iron door, Qin Feiyang pressed the button, and the iron door quickly opened. "Miss, you're out." The 4 guards turned to look. However, when they saw Qin Feiyang and Wolf King, their expressions changed drastically. "Why are you in the warehouse?" The 4 of them shouted, their auras exploding. "Are you pigs? Is there a need to ask?" "Of course, we're here to rob." Chapter 369. robbery. The 4 guards were shocked. Their gazes swept past the 2 men and the wolf and looked into the storeroom. When they saw the empty iron frame, the 4 of them felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies and minds trembled. Attack! Qin Feiyang shouted. Boom! Wolf King stood up and instantly turned into a muscular wolf. His 2 thick claws fiercely struck out. 2 guards were sent flying. Blood spurted from their mouths, and they fainted on the spot. You deserve to die. The other 2 guards were furious. Battle Qi surged out like a torrent. Carrying an astonishing momentum, they rushed towards Wolf King. Humph! Qin Feiyang coldly snorted. He took a step forward and clapped his hands in the air. The 2 battle Qi changed sides and submerged the 2 guards. Cries of agony could be heard. What happened? Could it be that someone is causing trouble in the exchange pavilion? The commotion came from the storeroom. Everyone in the exchange pavilion was alarmed. Da-da-da, accompanied by a burst of hurried footsteps. One by one, the guards frantically ran towards the 6th floor. At the same time, the middle-aged man with a square face also rushed out of the VIP lounge with a bewildered look on his face and ran towards the warehouse. Suddenly, at the corner, 2 men and a wolf appeared in his line of sight. Qin Feiyang, the middle-aged man's gaze suddenly trembled. Why was he here? Could it be he could not help but have a terrifying thought in his mind? You're courting death, the middle-aged man roared. A pitch-black battle sword appeared behind his back. This was his battle soul. The battle sword pierced through the air. With an astonishing sharpness, it slashed towards the 2 men and the wolf. Scram! Qin Feiyang roared. Golden light burst out from his palm as he slapped towards the battle soul. Clang! The battle sword turned in the air. Like a graceful swan, it actually cut the middle-aged man's body into 2 halves. Blood splattered on the spot. What? The guards who rushed up first were all dumbfounded when they saw the scene. He was actually killed by his own battle soul. Was this a dream? Scram if you don't want to die! Wolf King shouted, his ferocious aura surging. The guards panicked. None of them dared to step forward. They kept retreating. 2 people and 1 wolf quickly rushed up to the 2nd floor. City, Lord's Mansion. Inside the conference hall, the Meng family lord and the 3 leaders chatted happily. Whoosh! The white-haired old man suddenly appeared outside the gate. Father? The Meng family lord was stunned. He hurriedly stood up and asked, Father, have you made a breakthrough? The white-haired old man didn't answer. He looked at the 3 leaders and said with a faint smile, So you guys are here too? It's been many years since we last met. How have you been, old master? The 3 leaders also cupped their hands and smiled. At the same time, he was observing the white-haired old man's cultivation. If this person really broke through to the 4-star combat emperor, then the situation of the 3 major tribes would be even worse. He observed for a while. They all heaved a sigh of relief. The old master's cultivation was still at the 3-star combat emperor realm. He exchanged some pleasantries with the 3 leaders. The white-haired old man then turned to the Meng family lord and asked with a frown, What's the matter with Qin Feiyang? The Meng family lord was stunned and asked with a puzzled expression, Father, how did you know? The white-haired old man said, Tonger told me. What's the matter with this girl? Didn't I tell you not to disturb the old master? The Meng family lord frowned. Why didn't you inform me when such a big thing happened? Now you're blaming Tonger. Is this how you act as a family lord, a father and a son? The white-haired old man shouted. The Meng family lord felt wronged and said, Father, I didn't want to disturb you because you were in seclusion. Seclusion is important, but the reputation of the Meng family is more important. Tell me, where is Qin Feiyang? As long as I come out of seclusion, his death will come. The white-haired old man's voice was stern, and his old face was full of contempt. During this period, he has been trapped outside, but I accidentally let him slip away. Now, I don't know where he is hiding, but I can guarantee with my head that he is definitely still in the city, Lord's mansion. The Meng family lord said solemnly, "Family lord, bad news." But at this moment, a guard ran into the meeting hall in a hurry. The Meng family lord shouted, "What are you panicking for?" Qin Feiyang and the others ransacked the warehouse of the trading pavilion and are now ransacking the medicinal herbs on the second floor, and many guards were killed by them. The guard shouted, "What?" The Meng family lord and the old master's expressions changed suddenly. The three chiefs looked at each other in disbelief. One had to know. The Meng family was the local tyrant of this area. Even the three tribes did not dare to go against the Meng family. But this Qin Feiyang actually ransacked the warehouse of the trading pavilion? Just who was this kid? How could he be so audacious? Most importantly, the warehouse of the trading pavilion was heavily guarded. They did not have the confidence to sneak in. So how did this person do it? I fell into a trap, damn it. The old master suddenly understood. The Meng Tong he saw before was not his biological granddaughter at all. Quickly go and see if Tong is in the boudoir. The old master hurriedly left a sentence, then rushed out of the hall and flew towards the trading pavilion. The three of you, please go ahead. The Meng family's patriarch cupped his hands and said to the three leaders. Then he immediately rushed to the back garden. His heart was full of worry. We underestimated that kid. Yes, at first I thought he was just a grasshopper who could not jump for long, but I did not expect him to do such an earth-shattering thing. Let's go to the trading pavilion and see if he has 3 heads and 6 arms. The three chiefs' battle, chi surged, turned into a stream of light, and quickly rushed out of the hall. At the same time, on the second floor of the trading pavilion. This is a robbery, don't move. Otherwise, you will end up like them. Wolf King stood in front of a few corpses, with his head held high and his chest out, looking majestically at the scene. The guards, staff, and guests were all gathered together, looking at him in horror. As for Qin Feiyang and Fatso, they were sweeping the medicinal herbs as if there was no one else around. Qin Feiyang, you will not have a good ending for doing this. It's not too late to turn back now. The young woman also stood in the crowd, looking at the medicinal herbs being taken by the two into their chinkuan bags. She was extremely anxious. Shut up. Don't think that I won't kill you just because you are a woman. If you piss me off, I will still cut you into pieces. Wolf King shouted. The young woman's pupils constricted, and she no longer dared to speak. After a few breaths of time, Fatso happily held a chinkuan bag and ran in front of Qin Feiyang, smiling. Boss, we can leave now. Qin Feiyang also held a chinkuan bag in his hand and glanced at the counter where the medicinal herbs were placed. After confirming that not a single one was left out, he threw the chinkuan bag to Fatso and then sent Fatso to the castle. Next, he walked to Wolf King's side, glanced at those people and said, "They are not from the Meng family. Hurry up and leave." All the guests and staff immediately ran downstairs in a panic. In the end, only the group of guards and the young woman were left. Qin Feiyang looked at the woman in surprise and said, "So you are also from the Meng family?" The young woman said coldly, "You won't be able to escape. Surrender." "I really didn't think of escaping." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Kill them all." Wolf King's ferocious nature erupted. Like a violent beast, he rushed towards the group of guards. At that moment, screams rang out one after another. The young woman was also so scared that she kept retreating, her face filled with fear. Soon, the guards all fell to the ground. Wolf King's eyes revealed a fierce light and was about to kill the young woman. "You deserve to die." But at this moment, A hoarse growl sounded out. Qin Feiyang and Wolf King turned around and saw a white-haired old man standing at the staircase on the second floor. Who else could he be but the old master? Wolf King hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang's side. This old fellow was a 3-star war emperor. If he was too far away from Qin Feiyang, he would lose his life. Da-da! The old master walked into the hall, step by step, glancing at the corpses all over the floor and the counter that had been looted. The killing intent in his eyes became even stronger. Whoosh! The 3 leaders also rushed up from the corridor. When they saw this scene, their hearts were set off by stormy waves. Entering the hall, the 3 of them looked at Qin Feiyang and Wolf King. 5-star war emperor. They were stunned. With such little strength, they dared to go against the Meng family? Seeing the 3 leaders, Qin Feiyang was not surprised at all and said indifferently, "Are you here to help the Meng family?" Help? The 3 of them were stunned. The burly man shook his head and said, "We're just here to join in the fun." Then the 3 of them retreated to a corner and watched coldly. "How do you want to die?" At this moment, the old master suddenly raised his head, staring at the man and wolf, and said coldly. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "I'm afraid we won't die today. As long as this old man comes out of seclusion, you won't have a chance to live. If you know what's good for you, immediately hand over the treasures in the warehouse. I can still consider leaving your corpses intact." The old master said. Wolf King sneered and said, "You want us to spit out the things in our pockets? Do you think it's possible?" "Well, you asked for it." The old master's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and a terrifying aura suddenly erupted. Thump! At this moment, the Meng family lord ran up anxiously and said in shock and anger, "Father, Tong is missing." What? The old master's body trembled, and he immediately shouted at Qin Feiyang, "Did you kill her?" Qin Feiyang said, "No, she's fine now. But if you dare to do it, it's hard to say." The old master said in a deep voice, "Let her go, leave the treasures, and this old man will let you leave White Fox City." Qin Feiyang was surprised. He didn't expect this old man to care so much about Meng Tong. "Let her go, there's no problem. Anyway, she's just a small character. But you have to give me the coordinates of Sky Thunder City or Purple Sun Tribe. As for the treasures, don't even think about it," Qin Feiyang said. Stubborn. The old master was furious. He actually dared to threaten him? Boom! The pressure of a 3-star combat emperor erupted in an instant. Immediately, a man and a wolf were imprisoned. At the same time, Chapter 370. Although she was a woman, she was very ambitious. As long as she killed Qin Feiyang, it would be a great merit. When the time came, she would be the manager of the trading pavilion. There was even a possibility that she would be favored by the old family head and would have a meteoric rise in the future. Normally, she would not dare to make a move, because her strength was not as strong as Qin Feiyang. But now, Qin Feiyang was imprisoned by the pressure, which was equivalent to a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. How could she let go of such a good opportunity? However, dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. Just as she approached, Qin Feiyang suddenly turned his head and grinned at her. "You can still move?" The young woman was shocked. The old family head, the Meng family lord, and the 3 leaders were all in disbelief. It's normal for women to be ambitious. But your mistake is that you shouldn't have used me to get to the top. Qin Feiyang pointed his finger, and the battle aura was like a rainbow, directly entering the young woman's forehead. Accompanied by a shrill scream, the young woman fell to the ground and died. "How dare you kill my Meng family?" The old family head was burning with anger. He stepped in front of Qin Feiyang and the battle aura in his old hand surged as he slapped Qin Feiyong's head. "People of the Meng family, just wait to wail." Qin Feiyong roared and instantly disappeared without a trace. The roar spread in all directions, echoing in the sky above White Fox City for a long time. At this moment, as long as it was a member of the Meng family, they could not help but panic. He can really disappear into thin air. In the hall on the second floor, the three leaders looked at the place where Qin Feiyong disappeared, and their eyes almost popped out. The old family head's expression was the most interesting. On the one hand, he was shocked. On the other hand, Qin Feiyong slipped away under his nose, which was tantamount to slapping him hard in the face. "Father, don't worry. He can't move. As long as we stay here, he'll come out sooner or later." Seeing that the old family head was on the verge of exploding in anger, the Meng family lord hurriedly comforted him. "Unable to move? Good, very good. You go and pacify the people. This old man will wait here, personally." The elderly head stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. Naive. At this moment, a cold laugh rang out. Qin Feiyong appeared in front of the old patriarch out of thin air. He was holding a person in his hand. It was Meng Tong. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong grabbed Meng Tong's neck and hurriedly took a few steps back before the elderly master and Meng Tong could react. "Tong, let her go!" When they came to their senses, their expressions changed and they shouted at the same time. "My patience is limited. Give me the coordinates immediately, or I'll kill her." Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with killing intent. "How dare you?" the old family head roared. "I even dared to rob the storehouse, not to mention killing someone." Qin Feiyong sneered. The elderly master and Meng Tong were speechless. That's right. Not only did he rob the storehouse, but he also wreaked havoc in the city, Lord's mansion. Why would he care about a life? This person was simply a lawless master. Meng family lord said angrily, using a woman as a shield. "Are you still a man?" "Don't make it sound so dignified. One of you is a 3-star combat emperor, while the other is a 1-star combat emperor. How dare you shamelessly attack me, a 5-star combat king? In terms of shamelessness, I'm no match for you. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine." Qin Feiyong's eyes were filled with mockery. The three leaders looked at each other with a hint of mockery in their eyes. The Meng family used their power to bully others. This was nothing new. Seeing the Meng family being humiliated, they felt quite satisfied. The elderly master and Meng Tong were silent. Qin Feiyong sneered, "Nothing to say? How about this? Send a few 5-star combat kings to have a fair fight with me. If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me. But if I win, you have to tell me the coordinates." "What do you think?" Qin Feiyong asked. The elderly master and Meng Tong were so angry that smoke was coming out of their heads. Even a 9-star combat king was no match for this man. Now he wanted them to send a 5-star combat king to have a fair fight? Wasn't he trying to embarrass the Meng family? "Can't I? Then just send a 9-star combat king." "Well, I'm a reasonable person. I'm easy to talk to," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. The three leaders' faces twitched. "Is this what you call being reasonable? This is easy to talk to? To hell with it. You want a fair fight, right? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll suppress my cultivation to 9-star combat king and fight with you." Meng family lord took a step forward and looked at Qin Feiyong provocatively. Seeing this, the three leaders couldn't help but shake their heads. As a 1-star combat emperor, challenging a junior who was only a 5-star combat king was already embarrassing enough. However, Meng family lord actually said that he would suppress his cultivation to 9-star combat king. Didn't he find it embarrassing? Even if he wanted to suppress his cultivation, he should have suppressed it to 5-star combat king, the same cultivation level as Qin Feiyong. Only then would it be fair. The elderly master also frowned. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with Meng family lord's reckless behavior. However, he had no other choice now. This was because the other 9-star battle monarchs were simply no match for Qin Feiyang. However, Qin Feiyang was not stupid. If the Meng family lord suddenly regained his peak strength during the fight, wouldn't he die? Anyway, he couldn't accept such a ridiculous challenge. It seems that we can't reach an agreement. Then we'll follow the original plan and use the coordinates to exchange for Meng Tong's life, Qin Feiyang said. The Meng family lord looked at the unconscious Meng Tong, his eyes full of struggle. A moment later, he looked at the white-haired old man and growled, "Father, give him the coordinates." The elderly master said, "We can't give it to him unless he returns all the treasures to us." "But what about Tong? She's your granddaughter. You can't leave her in the lurch." The Meng family lord said anxiously, "I know. I don't need you to remind me." The elderly master said angrily. He was already very annoyed. The Meng family lord's words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. Qin Feiyang glanced at the father and son and said with a faint smile, "I'll give you 3 breaths." 3 breaths. The Meng family lord's body trembled. He turned his head and looked at the elderly master pleadingly. However, the elderly master ignored him and even closed his eyes. 3 breaths passed quickly. Suddenly, the elderly master opened his eyes. 2 cold lights burst out from his eyes. He pointed his finger without hesitation. Whoosh! 6 murderous battle cheese shot toward Qin Feiyang and Meng Tong like lightning. What? The 3 leaders' eyes widened in anger. The elderly master was going to sacrifice his granddaughter. "Father, no." The Meng family lord's expression changed abruptly. He hurriedly cried out, but it was too late. Puff! The 6 battle cheese were like sharp arrows. They sank into Meng Tong's body. Instantly, blood splattered across the sky. Ah! The heart-wrenching pain woke her up. She immediately let out a shrill scream. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also felt a strong sense of danger. All the hair on his body stood on end. Driven by instinct, he quickly abandoned Meng Tong and entered the ancient castle. In the blink of an eye, the moment he entered the ancient castle, the 6 battle cheese swept out from Meng Tong's back and blasted forward. If it had been a little later, he would have definitely died on the spot. Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, the trading pavilion collapsed. The trading pavilion has also collapsed. The people on the streets were all in a daze. Could it be that even the elderly master could not do anything to Qin Feiyang? Boom! Soon after, 5 figures rushed out from the ruins. They were the 3 leaders, the elderly master and the Meng family lord. The Meng family lord was still holding Meng Tong. However, at this moment, they were all covered in dust and looked extremely miserable. As soon as they came out, the Meng family lord roared, "Father, you're too cruel to even kill your own granddaughter." "Shut up. Look at Tong. I's condition first before you blame me." The elderly master shouted coldly and scanned his surroundings, looking for Qin Feiyang. The Meng family lord was stunned. He lowered his head and looked at Meng Tong. His eyes immediately lit up. Although the 6 battle cheese had pierced through Meng Tong's body, none of them were fatal. Moreover, his breathing and heartbeat were still there. As long as he took a healing pill in time and recuperated for a few months, he would be as good as new. It was only now that the 3 leaders realized what was going on. It turned out that the elderly master did not really want to kill his granddaughter. He just wanted to save her. However, this method was a little extreme. If he was not careful and injured his heart and sea of qi, Meng Tong's life would be over. The Meng family lord took out a healing pill and put it in Meng Tong's mouth. He asked, "Father, have you found them?" The elderly master shook his head. The Meng family lord said in a low voice, They must be hiding. The elderly master said, "Don't worry about this. Take Tong or back to recuperate first." "Okay." The Meng family lord nodded. He turned around and flew into the city lord's mansion, disappearing from the main hall. The elderly master looked at the three leaders and asked, "Can the three of you do this old man a favor?" Old man Snakeskin smiled sinisterly. "Tell us first." The elderly master said, "Use your battle cheese to seal off White Fox City. Don't let Qin Feiyang escape." The burly man frowned and said, "Doing this will consume a lot of battle cheese. What benefits will we get?" The elderly master said, "After this matter is done, I will give each of you 100,000 battle chi pills." "Deal." The three leaders' eyes lit up. They did not even hesitate and nodded in agreement. The elderly master said, "Then let's begin." The three leaders rose into the air and stood in a tripartite formation high in the sky. Boom! The next moment, their bodies shook and their battle chi gushed out in all directions like tidewater. In less than 10 breaths, a huge barrier formed and fell with a loud bang, enveloping the entire White Fox City. The elderly master glanced at the barrier and rushed into the sky, looking down at the huge city. From now on, no one is allowed to leave White Fox City. Once found, kill without mercy. His voice was like a bell, and everyone could hear it clearly, including Qin Feiyang in the castle. "It seems that the Meng family is prepared to fight to the death with us." The pangolin was a little worried. "What are you afraid of? Since they want to play, then we'll play with them. I'd like to see who will regret it in the end." Wolf King's eyes were full of disdain. Qin Feiyang glanced at Wolf King, and his eyes flashed. Swish! With a thought, he appeared in the ruins and looked up at the three leaders. "Three leaders, have you never thought about why the elderly master is the only alchemist in this area?" Chapter 371. Hearing this, the three leaders couldn't help but be stunned. At the same time, the elderly patriarch also heard it. Damn it! He cursed in his heart. With a wave of his big hand, his battle chi condensed into a giant hand that covered the sky and slammed down on the ruins below. Boom! With a loud bang, the ruins were reduced to ashes, and a huge deep pit appeared. The aura spread in all directions. The crowd on the streets on all sides were sent flying, and screams were endless. Some people even died on the spot. "Is he dead?" The elderly patriarch waved his hand, and a strong wind whistled, blowing away the dust and smoke. Then he glanced at the deep pit, his expression uncertain. Whoosh! Suddenly, a white figure appeared out of thin air in the deep pit. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang? Why is he still alive? The elderly patriarch's eyes widened in anger. Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then looked at the three leaders and said, "Do you want to know the truth?" "What truth?" the burly man asked. "Don't listen to his nonsense. He's trying to sow discord between us." The elderly patriarch shouted, and then swooped down toward the deep pit, his eyes filled with murderous intent. He couldn't care less about the treasures now. He just wanted to kill Qin Feiyang to silence him. There are no alchemists in this area, and it has a lot to do with the Meng family. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he disappeared again. "Bastard, get out here." The elderly patriarch flew into a rage and crazily bombarded the deep pit. Inside the ancient castle, "Little Qin Zi, didn't you say that it's useless to tell them? Why are you telling them now?" Wolf King was puzzled. The past is the past, and the present is the present. Before this, I never thought of wiping them out. But now I want the Meng family to disappear completely. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. The pangolin's eyes trembled. This fierce man really couldn't be provoked. Outside, the three leaders stood in the air, all looking surprised. How could it be related to the Meng family? Could it be that there was some unspeakable secret hidden within? Old clan master sensed their expressions and hurriedly flew up into the sky. He said angrily, "This person has sinister intentions. The three of you must not listen to his nonsense." But before he could finish, Qin Feiyang's voice sounded again. In order to stabilize the Meng family's position in this area, they despicably assassinated other alchemists. Old man, in terms of viciousness, I can't even compare to 1/10 of you. He saw Qin Feiyang standing in the deep pit with a mocking smile on his face. What? The three leaders were startled and their eyes flickered. "Little bastard, don't talk nonsense," the old family head roared. "You know very well whether or not I'm spouting nonsense. Leaders, if you don't believe me, you can capture someone from the Meng clan and interrogate them." Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "You little brat who spouts nonsense. This old man will tear you to pieces." The old family head's killing intent soared to the heavens. Wait, but at this moment, the snakeskin old man spoke in a hoarse voice. The old family head was slightly stunned. He looked at the three of them and said in a deep voice, "Do you really believe him? This matter is of great importance. We have to interrogate him first." The old woman with a walking stick said, "If we confirm that he is lying, we will kill him ourselves." The burly man followed. Whoosh! The three leaders swooped down and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. The battle chi barrier that sealed off White Fox City also collapsed on its own. What should we do? The old family head was anxious. Suddenly, his old eyes flashed, and he said, "This old man will also listen to how you make up nonsense." Actually, he wanted to take this opportunity to get close to Qin Feiyang and kill him. However, he had obviously underestimated Qin Feiyang's intelligence. Qin Feiyang looked up and said with a smile, "Old clan master, don't come down. I will be scared away by you." These words were actually meant for the ears of the three leaders. He was telling the three of them that he was afraid that the old family head would kill him. If the old family head came down, he could only hide. "Old clan master, you haven't done anything wrong. You're not afraid of ghosts knocking on the door. Don't come down for the time being. Don't worry, we will never wrong a good person, and we will never let a bad person go." When the three leaders said this, the old family head really couldn't go down, because if he still went down now, it would prove that he had a guilty conscience. The burly man looked at Qin Feiyang and whispered, "Young man, do you know the consequences of lying to us?" "Of course I know. After offending the Meng family, I can't offend your three tribes." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The burly man said, "Well then, tell us now what exactly is going on. I wonder if the three leaders have seen the trading pavilion selling medicinal herbs?" Qin Feiyang did not answer but asked. Only the four of them could hear his voice. "I saw it. Is there a problem?" The three of them were puzzled. Of course there is a problem. Think about it, the old family head is the only alchemist in this area. Why would the trading pavilion sell medicinal herbs? Doesn't he know that the price of a finished grade pill is several times that of medicinal herbs? Qin Feiyang said. The three of them frowned. Qin Feiyang continued, "These medicinal herbs on the surface are for sale in the trading pavilion, but in fact," the old woman urged, "tell us in fact what?" After hearing it, don't overreact. In fact, the trading pavilion is used to lure alchemists to buy. Once someone buys medicinal herbs, the Meng family will immediately find an opportunity to assassinate them. Qin Feiyang said, "What?" The three of them were shocked. If Qin Feiyang had not told them in advance not to overreact, they would have jumped up on the spot. The burly man asked, "Little brother, are you sure this is true?" Before, he called Qin Feiyang young man, but now he called him little brother. From this subtle change, it could be seen that he already believed Qin Feiyang's words. It's absolutely true. Qin Feiyang nodded. The three leaders' eyes darkened. When the Meng family first came to this area, their three tribes actually had alchemists. But soon after, they died one after another. Some died in battle, while others died in accidents. And later, many alchemists were born. The result was, without exception, all of them died young. But because the Meng family did it too perfectly, leaving no trace, the people of the three tribes had never suspected the Meng family. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang telling the truth today, they would have been kept in the dark. However, although they knew the truth, they couldn't help but hesitate at this moment. Qin Feiyang glanced at the three and said, "I know what you are hesitating about." The three frowned. "You are just worried that after the Meng family is eliminated, there will be no one in this area to refine pills. But I can tell you that you don't have to worry at all, because I am an alchemist." Qin Feiyang said. "You?" The three looked at him suspiciously. "If I'm not an alchemist, why would I rob those herbs?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The burly man asked, "You mean after the Meng family is eliminated, you will help us refine pills?" "I don't have that much time, but I can help you train an alchemist. But you need to find a way to refine the alchemy fire yourself. And as a condition, destroy the Meng family immediately." Qin Feiyang said. Old Man Snakeskin said, "Don't worry about the alchemy fire, our three tribes have it, but we don't have the pill formulas and herbs." "They all have alchemy fire?" Qin Feiyang was stunned, and his heart was in disbelief. One had to know. In the spiritual state, except for the Holy Palace, it was difficult to find alchemy fire. But in the Forgotten Land, not only the Old Master had alchemy fire, but also the three tribes. Could it be that alchemy fire had spread all over the streets here? No. It made sense that they didn't have the pill formulas. After all, every alchemist would carry the pill formulas with them. When a person was about to die, the pill formulas would naturally fall into the hands of others or shatter and disappear along with the Qinkuan bag. But without herbs, it didn't make sense. Qin Feiyang asked, "Your three tribes should be big tribes. How can you not have herbs?" "We originally accumulated a lot of herbs. But every time we buy pills from the Meng family, we give priority to using herbs. The value of the herbs is not enough, so we use gold coins to make up for it," the old woman said. Qin Feiyang asked, "Then you don't find it strange. Why did the Meng family do this?" Generally speaking, they directly used gold coins to buy pills, who would use herbs to trade. The old master is an alchemist, so it's normal for him to want herbs. And our three tribes don't have alchemists, so there's no use in keeping the herbs. So, every time the Meng family asked us to use herbs to trade, we didn't refuse. Even in the past, we have always been grateful to him. The burly old man sighed. Only at this moment did they understand that the Meng family's actions were actually to cut off the retreat of their three tribes. The Meng clan was truly despicable. "Little brother, how about this? Give us the pill formulas and we will immediately join forces to eradicate the Meng family. As for the herbs, there's no need to trouble you. We'll slowly buy them ourselves," the three leaders suggested. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment and said, "I don't know many pill formulas." The burly man said, "It's fine as long as they're a healing pill, body tempering pill, chi gathering pill, and battle chi pill." These medicinal pills were often used. Qin Feiyang said, "I do have these pill formulas." The burly man said, "All right, then it's decided. Now, we'll have to trouble little brother to act out a play with us. I'm the best at acting, but are you guys confident?" Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, his eyes flashing. "Of course we are confident. We are all 3-star War Emperor. If we launch a sneak attack, we can guarantee that we can kill them in one strike," the burly man said confidently. Next, the four of them slowly darkened their faces and began to argue. And the more they argued, the fiercer they became. "Little bastard, You don't have any evidence. What are you talking about? Suddenly, the burly man shouted. His palm struck Qin Feiyang's chest like lightning. Ah! Qin Feiyang screamed and smashed into the ground behind him, spitting out blood. In fact, the burly man's strength was not great, at most 1/10 of it. But even if it was only 1/10, it wasn't something that Qin Feiyang could bear. He climbed up in a sorry state, the blood and qi in his body surging. He glared at the three of them and said angrily, "I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me?" "You're still spouting nonsense. You're really courting death." The burly man's eyes were filled with killing intent, and he threw another punch at Qin Feiyang. "Young man, don't waste your time. You're just trying to sow discord between us and the Meng family. Unfortunately, your trick has been seen through by us." At the same time, the old woman and old man Snakeskin had a mocking look in their eyes. "Trick? I promise you'll regret it." Qin Feiyang was so angry that he laughed and disappeared without a trace. "Little bastard, don't hide if you have the guts." The burly man's punch missed, and he couldn't help but roar. Seeing this, you're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.